is a presentation of Sartoba Media and Comey Media Incorporated.
Brock Purdy does it again. Chiefs and Eagles on Monday Night Football. We already have a firing this morning and much more on this edition of Total Football Talk. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to NFL's Total Football Talk here on Sartoba Media as well as on Comey Media. And normally you see Cole in these intros. He's normally introducing the show, the man, myth, and the legend behind all the awesome transitions and the foundation of this show. But today he is traveling for the holidays, and I am running the ship today as we have a special guest taking over for myself today on that side of the show, and that is the student of the game. Welcome back to the Sartoba Media airwaves, and for the first time on Comey Media's, the student of the game, Kyle Nash. Welcome back to the program in there, brother.
Honor, joy, and privilege, and since I am playing you today, sorry I didn't get my haircut right, but I will say let's mother, father, and go and get some football in here, Drew Willingham.
You would have to make some awesome shifting within those hairlines to make what happens right here happen. It's hidden behind the headphones. We won't get too far into that this morning as there is a lot to cover on this show, but as we have here on the slate, we got to go through the opening drive as we've got some even breaking news to cover within that opening drive.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989, on two. Ready? Great.
Kyle, here with the opening drive, you know, we had 4 teams on bye this week. Going into the next week, we don't have any teams on byes, but for week 11, we did have 4 teams on byes right here, and that being the Atlanta Falcons, the Indianapolis Colts, the New England Patriots, and the New Orleans Saints were all on byes in week 11. So that last little bit of a break that they get going into the Thanksgiving week where all 4 teams are playing, at least they got a little bit of a break going into this week 11 matchup. Now, we had a Thursday night matchup in this past week, and that being the Baltimore Ravens and Cincinnati Bengals right here. You know, this contest right here, the Baltimore Ravens take it 34-20. Lamar Jackson, 16-26, 264 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Ravens offense, 157 rushing yards. Odell Beckham Jr., 4 receptions, 116 yards, and the Bengals offense, 136 rushing yards. What were your thoughts on this matchup when you're watching this thing back on Amazon Prime last week?
Listen, I was ready to go for a big game. I mean, this was one that was going to decide the fates of the Ravens, and well, let's just say the AFC North outright, whether it be the Ravens, the Bengals, or otherwise. But I'll tell you this, Drew Willingham, neither team walked away from the matchup in question unscathed, and just the whole situation with Joey Burr gone for the season. Mark Andrews falling into that same category, although allegedly he may be back for postseason play, possibly. If you're a fantasy owner out there, don't think he's going to help you at all anymore this season for your own mental sanity. But you mentioned the rushing yards there too. I think that was more a matter of you got Jake Browning coming to the game. You needed to try to get yards somehow, and that became kind of the focus of the offense later in the game. But hey, listen, credit to Browning who managed to throw a touchdown in the contest. But I expect that this would have been closer had Joey Burr stayed healthy. Especially, I mean, we were looking for a situation with Burr versus Lamar Demetrius Jackson. We didn't get it, unfortunately, for how things went. It is what it is.
Hey, with what happened with Joe Burrow, there's probably a lot of people who put some money down on DraftKings or FanDuel or whatnot. We're pretty upset with the outcome early on in the game with his hand getting busted up and getting knocked on out. They tried to give you some hope there coming out of halftime, saying, by Zach Taylor saying that Jake Browning knows the entire playbook, ins words and outs words, and saying that he's going to come in there and do some great things in the second half, which we never got to see, unfortunately. Yeah, he did throw that one touchdown and didn't turn the ball over, but it just wasn't quite enough to get the Bengals over the hump when it comes to the situation right here. That was our only Thursday game last week. So let's go ahead and take it into our Sunday 1:00 games. And for a game that was pretty tight, the Cleveland Browns win over the Pittsburgh Steelers 13-10. The Browns defense 3 sacks, along with Jalen Warren 9 carries for 129 yards and a touchdown, 3 receptions, 16 yards. Steelers offense 172 rushing yards combined on the day. What were your thoughts when you were watching this game on Sunday?
Listen, I expected a sloppy game coming out the gate, Drew Willingham. Was anybody surprised that this was going to be defense on defense crime here? And by the way, can we please reiterate Kevin Stefanski as a Coach of the Year candidate? And listen, I'm on record too on the Student of the Game podcast, bing, where I have said the chances of improved advancement have taken place now that Deshaun Watson is out for the year. No, I'm not complaining necessarily about Deshaun Watson's play, although plenty of Brown fans, I'm sure, are. I think there's a mental block there still a bit in Watson's head, in that kind of that locker room that's still hanging over him being the villain. And some would argue, and rightly so. But I think this whole situation, PJ Walker at the helm's doing the thing. The thing that still amazes me more than anything else, Drew Willingham, is the fact they still handle business on, that's BIDNESS, by the way, for anybody. But they still handle business on the ground with without their top running back. With Chubb out, they're still prolific in the ground game, and that's why I make the statement that I do. Jalen Warren, who. So I say all that to say, I mean, I knew who Darnus Johnson was, but that was different. That's a different season. Listen, for all my joking, it's just incredibly impressive what they're doing there. And of course, listen, if you're the Steelers, you're able to run the ball prolifically as well. That's where we make the Jalen Warren comment. And Kareem Hunt, he's still pretty good at football. He didn't have a whole lot of running yards himself, but a lot of guys running for the Browns to get some ground game, to churn up some yards, and to still find a way to win. Like I said, we expected a sloppy game, and we'll leave it at that.
I mean, pretty much when you say it just like that, I have to throw this out there. That's what it was when you look at your quarterback play between the Steelers and the Browns. Now, DTR did do well enough to help guide this team to a victory as the quarterback, but he still had no touchdowns and 1 interception. So 24-43 for 165 yards isn't quite going to cut the mustard, but when I have to give it to the fact that he is a rookie, I can't throw with so much shade. Kenny Pickett, not a rookie, 15-28, 106 yards. That's not going to get it done. The Steelers may be looking for a quarterback this offseason.
Well, maybe not. I think part of it with Pickett too. I think we're touching on it too. You mentioned the breaking news this morning. To kind of, let's just say, to kind of spoil that whole situation. Apparently, the Steelers now subscribe to the Trey Parker and Matt Stone school of NFL personnel. They're going to blame Canada. See what I did there, Drew Willingham?
So, Kyle, what you're saying there is we have. Go ahead and tell them.
Literally mere minutes before kicking the show off, Matt Canada let loose because, as I said, blame Canada. Blame Canada. Is on their bingo card this morning, Drew Willingham. And I think, but what I'm seeing in the scuttlebutt now is that he was part of the issues potentially holding Kenny Pickett back. One might even say that others out there are picketing for Kenny. But all that in mind, I see a potential for improvement there. And go ahead, Drew. Sorry.
I would say it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. My bad. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. You're good. I was wrapping up anyway. We're all right. But yeah, I think the big thing here is if you didn't expect a sloppy game, you didn't pay attention when I was screaming from the hilltops, just take the under. I don't care what the number is.
Now, for a game that we didn't have to see quite such an ugly outcome for, the Green Bay Packers and the Los Angeles Chargers, as the Packers win in a nail-biter 23-20. Jordan Love, 27 of 40, 322 yards with 2 touchdowns. I don't even know how Dontavian
Wicks.
Dontavian Wicks. Well, apparently because spell check was on the slate, and it kind of messed me up with the vision right there. But Dontavian Wicks, 3 receptions, 91 yards. Justin Herbert, 21 of 36, 260 yards with 2 touchdowns. The Chargers offense, 150 rushing yards, including Keenan Allen's 10 receptions for 116 yards and a touchdown. Kyle Nash, what were your thoughts on this game with all that being said?
Another big game drop. I'm sure we'll be talking about another one here later on the docket. More on that later, but certainly something else where Justin Herbert will inevitably be blamed as an alleged choke artist candidate. You know, I haven't seen anything I haven't seen so much misrepresentation of a quarterback's skill compared to his surrounding since Tony Romo, possibly Andrew Luck. It's just disappointing to see the situation. And we'll just say the coaching might be an issue, and I don't mean Kellen Moore. More on that later as well.
Yeah, you stole it right out of my mouth with that one, because I mean, when you look at this quarterback play right here, I'm looking at it and I'm not thinking that it's all on the quarterback. I want to say it's more along the lines of management, but we'll get back into that here in a little bit when it comes to that. Definitely well played by you there, Kyle Nash. You know, looking at this game, Keenan Allen, you know, definitely was a big impact on this game. But when you have your quarterback who's leading the game with rushing, 8 carries, 73 yards over Austin Eckler's 10 of 64, that always throws a red flag to me. I don't care what show I'm on, whether it's a debate show or the Commander show by myself or with this show with someone else. Like when we talk about the fact that we've got a quarterback that has more running yards than your actual leading running back, that is a problem in my opinion, because unless you are someone like Lamar Jackson, who is notably well known for his ability to run the ball as a quarterback, then if you're someone like Justin Herbert or Josh Allen with the Bills or someone like that, it throws red flags to me that you're getting more yards on the ground than your actual running back in the game. And it usually doesn't end well, whether you still lose the game or like in this case, or your quarterback gets hurt when you run the ball one too many times. So to me, that's one thing I'd never like to see. That I'll always throw a red flag on there for that one.
I mean, I'll say this: you do have a bit of a statistical anomaly with Herbert having a 28-yard run in there, but that falls flat on its face too when the lion's share, no, more than half, I should say, because math, more than half of Eckler's runs came on a single 37-yard jaunt. Here's some numbers for you there, Chief, real quick off the top of my head. 9 for 27 if he doesn't have that carry. At the end of the day, that means he's just a 3 yards per carry back in that scenario. And I doubt all of his runs were just for 3 yards, meaning I probably had some losses in there. So, yeah, at the end of the day, sometimes the scheme is just ready for you. And I'll put it this way. I know the Packers are a better defense, but they shouldn't be making that happen, especially with a guy as talented as Eckler.
Hey, well played, Kyle Nash. I set that thing up like in volleyball, and you spiked that unit on over the net. So well played on that one, my man.
Just here for my good looks, baby.
Speaking of good looks, when it comes to offenses, moving on to the next game, being the Miami Dolphins and the Las Vegas Raiders, which the Dolphins took this one 20-13. Tua goes 28 of 39 for 325 yards with 2 touchdowns, an interception, and a lost fumble, which almost cost him the game. But Tyreek Hill, 10 receptions, 146 yards, and a touchdown. Raheem Mostert, 22 carries, 86 yards, a reception with 7 yards. Aiden O'Connell, though, 24 of 41, 271 yards, a touchdown, and 3 interceptions, along with Devontae Adams, 7 receptions for 82 yards and a touchdown. Along with that stat line there, what else did you see within this game right here?
Listen, all you cutie patooties out there that want to jump aboard the lamestream media and be all about CJ Stroud as an MVP candidate, and I'm not saying he isn't one, but stop playing. And please give Tyreek Hill some more respect. Are you kidding me? In a scenario like this, where the Vegas Raiders were beating you at one point in the game, this dude willed you back into existence. And as a team that I was once supposed to be impressed by, putting 70 on the Denver Broncos, who have yet to, well, they're starting to actually recover from the evil that is Nathaniel Hackett. Hashtag I said it. You averaged 20.5 points the past 2 weeks, and I'm supposed to be impressed by this offense. Listen, I like Mike McDaniel as a coach. I think he's done awesome things. I think he should continue to be the coach there. And listen, this isn't just a media guy that loves good sound bites. This is not acceptable. Okay, just saying.
Definitely with this game right here, things were pretty tight. And, Kyle brings up some great points. And with the amount of receiving yards that this man has been putting up, when you look at what Tyreek Hill has been doing, definitely deserves to be.
Already? Anyways, I'm good. Sorry.
What was that?
Isn't he over 1,200 yards already?
Yeah, at this point in the year, and we still have several games left to go in the year. Yeah, you were absolutely right with that. Now, you can't downplay what CJ Stroud has been doing at the same time there, Kyle.
For what the lead. Yeah, well, let's not talk down. Hey, listen, I'll give him his flowers when we get there. Let's get to the game.
Oh, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But right here, the Dolphins 7-3 at this point in the year, especially, someone who should definitely be the comeback player of the year for what he's been doing this year. And Tua, after what he experienced last year with the head injuries, and now he's coming back. Tyreek Hill is definitely helping him out with looking as good as he is. If you take away his stat line, he's got some pretty humanized numbers at that point when you look at Tua's numbers outside of Tyreek Hill, but they're not bad. He's still doing a pretty good job protecting the ball, moving things around, and keeping his team within winning games. They've got 7-3 record through 10 games already this year. Most are doing a pretty good job on the ground as well, but looking at what Tua is doing, 28-39 isn't bad numbers. He just needs to do a better job when it comes to certain situations that he's playing in, because that's what that interception was a result of.
Sure. He's still a fine game manager, which is not a slur against quarterbacks. Overall, he doesn't turn the ball over. I know he has an interception here, but listen, can we give Max Crosby some credit up front? Like, goodness gracious, that dude's the real deal. Okay.
Yeah, no, you spoke true words right there with what Max Crosby did. I mean, 3 tackles, 3 assists, and had a sack in this game. I mean, that definitely, he makes more of an impact in the stat line itself right there. But Max Crosby definitely needs to get some help on that defensive side for the Raiders. And if they make some moves during this offseason, the Raiders can be back to a notable team again if they keep, if they keep AP in there, because even in this loss right here, it was still a respectable loss. It wasn't like when Josh McDummy was leading the helm and things were going as south as they were before they let him go, because AP is starting to bring back a little bit more respect within this organization for the Raiders.
1,000,000% Drew Willingham. And remember, it's Josh McDaniels, because Mike McDaniel is singular without the S, right? And McDaniels, the S is for stinks. Shall we move on?
I love it. That was great. When it comes to our next game, we've got the Dallas Cowboys and the Carolina Panthers, a team that tried to punk the Cowboys earlier in the game, but they definitely were upended by the end of it as Dak Prescott goes 25 of 38 for 189 yards, 2 touchdowns. The Cowboys defense, 7 sacks with an interception and a fumble recovery. What was your thoughts about this game, and especially how the Cowboys defense participated within it?
I know everybody's going to yell and scream about the Panthers and dealing with Bryce Young, but the memory must be that Bryce is young. A, B, I know his size is something people have complained about too, and the lack of protection therein in both those situations is just too big a factor for this offense. I know technically that Young has 2 turnovers on the day because he also lost a fumble, but they just need more beef up there up front before we can even have a good conversation. Nothing matters if your own line isn't delivering, period, point blank, end of story.
Absolutely. You are definitely right when it comes to that. And this Cowboys team right here. You know, when you look at what Dak Prescott did, 189 yards and 2 touchdowns, that's not really all that impressive to me. I mean, when you're throwing under 200 yards in the game, you're getting paid the amount of money you're getting paid to be that quarterback over there in Dallas. The fact that this Cowboys defense stepped up, if it wasn't for that, I don't think we would have seen the type of outcome that we saw. Now, when we look at Bryce Young right here, you know, we can say he's young and all that stuff, but 16 to 29 in completions, 123 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, to me does not speak number 1 overall pick numbers, because you look at what CJ Stroud's doing. The offensive line needs work over there in Houston. He's dancing around and moving around, but still making moves and is still out. He's running away outright with the NFL Rookie of the Year this year. Okay. And with what Houston looked like last year, nobody expected Houston to be at the point to where they're at right now in the season. I'm not saying that he should be an MVP. We led last week's episode off with, should he be the MVP? But both Cole and I both said that it's way too soon to be saying that. For one, we need to get through the entire season to see what happens. He's starting it off pretty well. More likely will be the Rookie of the Year, but there's other players that are more deserving of being the actual MVP this year, like we had said in the previous statement with when you got Tyreek Hill and with what he has been doing this year. But right here, looking at this game, looking at the situation with the number 1 overall pick, I think Carolina made a mistake. They should have gone after CJ Stroud, because it's not that this Panthers team is as bad as they are on paper. 33 to 10 looks like you are a dumpster Pelican team. And with the dumpster Pelican team, you know, I think it's more so on the quarterback play and maybe the coaching as well, because Frank Reich got exposed in Indianapolis. It looks like he's getting exposed again in Carolina.
Well, I mean, before we get into the Indy situation and that exposure there, let's remember that in itself was a very special form of dumpster fire here too, and maybe they'll get better.
This type of special there, Kyle Nash?
I love that. Maybe I should have said a landfill fire for a better transition to the optics there. No, but I'll put it this way. The reason why it's the biggest problem that it is because of everything that Carolina gave up as a franchise. They mortgaged so much. They're in on the Bryce Young experiment, so they can't really just reset at this point. And honestly, I think moving Frank Reich and changing the coaching staff too much at this point might be kind of a mistake for such a young player. Get some beef, and we'll see if you continue to have beef after that point.
Well, they definitely need to do this first.
Stop it. Get some help.
Because they don't have enough of it right now. They are not succeeding when it comes to their team this year. They're going to be in the top 5 for a pick, and they don't even have their selection.
I can't even respond to that. It's a fine thing.
I can.
Acknowledge me.
I believe I did, Drew Willingham. I believe I did.
Moving on to a team that you know very, very well that you cover on a weekly basis, and that being the Jacksonville Jaguars. With this team right here getting the victory 34-14 over the Tennessee Titans that Cole Johnson hates very, very much. He does not like Tennessee Titans. When it comes to that team, Trevor Lawrence leading the way, 24-32, 262 yards and 2 touchdowns, along with Calvin Ridley, who has been staying off the betting apps this year to get 7 receptions for 103 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. What were your thoughts watching this game this past weekend?
Listen, all the little things you wanted to see tightened up as they played against Tennessee, bing, are things we saw in this game. I wrote about it as well on the Jaguar Report of Fan Nation on SI. Bing! But the bing is a thing, okay? It comes with me wherever I go to Willingham. I'm just saying. But not only, it wasn't just about Trevor Lawrence in the air. That was a big deal, obviously, getting Calvin Ridley involved. It's very weird, the correlation between Zay Jones being on the field and Calvin Ridley's performance. I know Zay Jones didn't necessarily have huge numbers on the day, but his involvement, the mere threat of him, seems to just draw Calvin Ridley open somehow or something. I don't know. Maybe there's some voodoo in the air. Who knows? But by the way, I heard in the press room there at Everbank Stadium after the game that Trevor Lawrence was the first Jaguar quarterback to have both 2 rushing and passing touchdowns. So there's a fun fact for you there. I still don't believe in Will Levis. Jeffrey Simmons up front for the Titans is a damn beast. but they don't have a whole lot else beyond DeMarco Murray. By the way, let the record show that the only reason the Titans have a touchdown on the docket, or rather 2 touchdowns on the docket, is on a completely trash personal foul roughing the passer that wasn't. And yeah, just absolute ridiculously silly. So with all that in mind, if you're a Jags fan, you wanted to see this kind of bounce back. You wanted to see this tune up for something that may essentially be a playoff game at this point as you play to battle for the AFC South in Houston on Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, well, that's definitely well said with that, and especially leading up to Thanksgiving weekend. But just watching this game as a whole, I have to cue Rick James right here.
Now, that is absurd.
That's basically what I was thinking when I was watching this game, because looking at how the Tennessee Titans were playing in this game, it was absolutely, again, dumpster Pelican-esque. I think they're probably the 7th or 8th dumpster Pelican in the back over there to the left. They were that far on the ranking. They were close to the top, but just not quite bad enough.
Acknowledge me.
So when it comes to this situation right here with Tennessee Titans, Will Levis is getting exposed. But another thing that's getting exposed is maybe the wheels have come off of Derrick Henry when he has 10 carries for 38 yards. I mean, the production there is not what it once was. You can blame part of it on the offensive line, on the offensive scheme, on the fact that Mike Vrabel may be out the door and maybe heading back home to coach his old team that he was playing for. We can get to that at a later point in the show. But overall, this game, I have to throw this out there. As it was bowling shoe ugly. And we got some comments here that I missed a little bit earlier that I want to touch up on right quick. Ryan McCarthy is in the house, says, what? Kyle Nash is in the house. Yes, Kyle Nash is definitely here, and is an honor, joy, and privilege, as he says, got to steal that saying, to have him here to fill in for the legend known as Cole Johnson. So it's cool that, the trio that I have over here with Sartoba Media helping me keep the things going on a weekly basis gets to come together in a way to be part of this project today. So it's definitely really, really cool. I appreciate Kyle being here for that. Let's get live.
Quick with Ryan McCarthy, like when you see the what there, is it like a Stone Cold like what? Is it like a DMX what? Or is it like Little John what? I don't know which inflection to put on that, but I'm grateful for it.
I think it's a combination of like Stone Cold and Little John with
What?
followed by
Yeah.
so it's like a combination of both. Yeah. I don't have an okay.
That's why I voice acted, Drew. Come on, I got you.
I might have to chop that up and use that from now on, because if I try to do it, then Rick James will be bad.
Now, that is absurd.
Yeah, my acting is not that great. When it comes to the comments, again, we have Victor Locke saying, let's get live. Let's chop it up. Let's get into total football talk with EP of all EPs, Cole Johnson, and the big game hunter of Dumpster Pelicans, Sensei Drew Willingham. Well, thank you, Victor Locke, for being here.
I feel
today.
like I disappointed him. I'm sorry. I'm not Cole Johnson.
This may have been posted right before we went live. I don't know. Victor, let me know here in the comments if you did. He might have rolled out once he saw that Cole Johnson was not here. I don't know. I don't know.
Let's just go right after the ego there, Drew Willingham.
It could. I don't know, but we'll find out here in the comments if he is still here and heard what I had to say. Now, when it comes to our next game that we have on the list, we have a game that wasn't quite as ugly, but it featured a team that has been ugly this year, and that being the Arizona Cardinals, as they went up against the Houston Texans, which the Texans won 21-16, with C.J. Stroud going 27-37, 336 yards, 2 touchdowns, and getting exposed a little bit with 3 interceptions. Devin Singletary, 22 carries, 112 yards with a touchdown. Tank Dell, 8 receptions, 149 yards with a touchdown. And Kyler Murray, 20 of 30 for 214 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Looking at this game without Josh Dobbs, what were your thoughts coming into this game or exiting this game after seeing it, actually?
I mean, it'd be interesting to see if they actually got enough flash there to show off Kyler Murray to get the trade they're hoping for, to hope to get something for him. But hey, at least he stayed on the field and didn't get hurt. And I mean that like without talking trash. I'm glad to see Kyler Murray healthy again. When he is healthy, he is an intriguing player to watch. And I think there's still some rust to knock off. The weapons that are there in Arizona are well limited to what he had when he started there. I don't think I'm, blowing anyone's mind by saying that. And listen, the real test for CJ Stroud, every quarterback occasionally has a bad game, and throwing the 3 interceptions and still getting the dub is a big deal for DeMeco Ryans and the Houston Texans, a guy who's definitely in the running for a Coach of the Year candidacy, probably still behind Stefanski, because I still don't know how the hell they're pulling that off up there in Cleveland, but that's another convo. Listen, Devin Singletary, for all the rumors of his alleged mediocrity in Buffalo, I think, as I tried to tell people regularly, that Devin Singletary is better than numbers he posted there. He's proving it with yet another pretty good game there that he's putting up in support of one CJ Stroud, and Tank Dell continuing to blow the roof off of defenses is a beautiful thing too.
I wonder if that could be part of the reason why, the Buffalo Bills just lost their offensive coordinator. What we had going on over there and what they could not do with Devin Singletary, but with what DeMeco Ryans is getting out of him over there at Houston. So looking at that and the fact that CJ Stroud threw 3 interceptions, I don't think they would have pulled away with this win yesterday or the other day had it not been for Devin Singletary's production on the ground, because that was, to me, watching this game was what kept them in this game. CJ Stroud did throw for 336 yards, had 2 touchdowns, but usually when you have more interceptions than touchdowns, it usually outweighs it. And unless you get a strong running game, which in this case is what they had, you're not going to get the win. So for them to be able to pull this game out, I don't know if it speaks more volumes on the fact of how their running game was, or if it speaks more on the volumes just how bad the Cardinals team is.
No, and that's a great call there too. Listen, here's what I do know is the Jacksonville Jaguar defensive coordinator, Mike Caldwell, will certainly be looking at this tape for next week, and I'm sure that's a topic of discussion that will come up on the Duval Dive with my guy Travis. I always said Travis Intia. No, that's the running back. Travis Holmes of Big Cat Country. That'll be Friday at 11:15 a.m. on any of these socials that you see here, and also the Jaguar chat of the PSF app if you're happy to be consuming through that. So look out for that. By the way, bing, thing I do, Drew Willingham.
It is a trademark. You have got to get that trademarked, or have it set up to where all you have to do is click a button of you saying "bing," kind of like with me and the Thomas Edward Patrick Brady II. Because if you just were to understand, Kyle, how much energy I saved by just clicking the button, by using a pre-recorded take of me saying Thomas Edward Patrick Brady II, I may have had that struck a little bit sooner had I not had that button ready on the to click on. So now that I've established that setup, these are looking pretty good.
Listen, it's always that risk in coaching between staying warm or getting rest, and I'm apparently of the previous. I want to keep the fire, so I'm going to go ahead and play and do my bing of my own accord. Though I have been known to drop an occasional angry bing, but I'm not going to force that here. You got to earn that. Anyways.
The great thing about fire and temperature, think of me as a campfire. You have to keep adding logs to it. You have to keep it going. But if you keep that unit going, it will outshine the rest.
Carry on, my good friend. Carry on.
That's the only way that you could do it. But hey, look at Ryan McCarthy right here. It was more like a say what? Kyle, laugh out loud. And you definitely crushed it there, Ryan McCarthy, with that one. We appreciate you being here in the chat and keeping things lit as we talk about fires out here on the show. Now, another team that you know very well, it's good that your team that you covered this week got the win, but the team that you are a fan of got the victory this week as well, with the 27-14 victory over the Bunker Stayfield-led Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as Bunker Stayfield throws for 29 of 45, 246 yards, a touchdown, an interception, and a lost fumble. Brock Purdy shows up as well with 21 of 25 attempts, 333 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Brandon Ayuk, 5 receptions, 156 yards, and a touchdown. George Kittle, 8 receptions, 89 yards, and a touchdown. The 49ers defense, 4 sacks, an interception, and a fumble recovery. The Bucs defense, 4 sacks, with Yaya Diaby, 2 sacks. A part of those 4 sacks looking at this right here, looking at these two teams, what were your thoughts watching this contest this past weekend?
And listen, all I can tell you immediately is seeing those sack numbers. I'm immediately wondering about Trent Williams' health going into the next game. Listen, the real MVP team isn't one Brock Purdy, isn't Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, or any of those incredibly talented human beings. You can make an argument for Christian McCaffrey. I'm not stopping you. But here's what I know. When Trent Williams isn't in the game at left tackle or he's limited, things can happen. And that's how you might end up with 4 sacks. I don't know. I might need a little bit more film to know whether they were Purdy's fault or not or whatever's going on there. But listen, this team lives and dies by Trent Williams before it does anything else. And by the way, that defense seems to be very good at football. So they have that going for themselves. And listen, for the obvious disdain that you and Cole Johnson appear to have for Baker Mayfield, see what I did there? For the disdain that you have in question, I am forced and compelled to remind you that he might just be still the second best quarterback in the NFC South.
Well, at least you said the NFC South. It took me a second to digest that because when I hear second best in Bunker Stayfield, they just don't usually mesh well together.
That's the joke.
Yes, it took me a while. Kyle Nash is very early in the morning, and you know I work mid to late shift. Okay, so doing this 9 a.m. to noon stuff is as much of an adjustment as for me to download everything that just happened. So got to give it to me on a second for that one.
I do need some coffee, and that's okay.
When it comes to that, we've got to another game right here, the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets. Now, before I go way too far with this, so bad it gets it again. 32-6. Looking at the fact that the Buffalo Bills just let go of their offensive coordinator last week, and now they turn around and win 32-6 with Josh Allen going 20-32, 275 yards, 3 touchdowns, an interception. Bills offense 130 rushing yards. Khalil Shakur 3 receptions, 115 yards and a touchdown. The Bills defense 6 sacks, with Leonard Floyd attributing to 2.5 of those sacks, 2 interceptions and 2 fumble recoveries as well for the Bills defense. Looking at this game, how bad did they mollywop and embarrass the New York Jets there, Kyle Nash?
I mean, listen, I know you and I as media folk are taught that negativity does draw eyeballs. How about we account for the fact that the Jets in most games are an awesome defense? They're like not Cleveland Browns good, but they're pretty bleeding good. However, Sauce Gardner apparently wasn't properly applied to the meat in question, as the defense seemed rather flavorless in this particular matchup. You do remember this is the defense that led to the win in the opening week after Aaron Charlotte Rodgers went down in 4 snaps. They found a way to beat this group. Listen, and for all the trash that was talked upon one Josh Allen after the OC firing, oh, well, Ken Dorsey, you know, he had him leading in all these different stats. You try to play him, that's crazy. And I might also be making my fun of myself a little bit there too. I'll be completely honest. While I was not as negative as many, I was not a believer that he was the biggest problem. And then they come out and do to that defense what they did. I think that's an impressive showing, and I'm not going to outright tell you it's a source of things to come, but I know Bill fans will hope so, because the rest of that remaining schedule that Buffalo has to face is an incredibly rough time. They'll need more of these, but this is a big one, especially in the quest to win the AFC East.
Hey, you hit the nail right on the head with all that. The one thing that I really want to add to this, I don't think we can get so excited about the Bills team and what happened there. Yeah, I think we have to look at this more on the fact of Aaron Rodgers got hurt for a reason, and that was not only because of the turf grass issue over there in New Jersey or whatever. It's more so on that offensive line and how terrible it is in New York. Everybody wants to throw all this shade on Zach Wilson, and yeah, he didn't look great and hasn't looked great at certain points. Yeah, he hasn't looked great at so many points in the past 2 years, but that offensive line has been making him look at his worst. Yeah. So if you have terrible protection there, we already see how Sam Howell's taken 51 sacks in Washington. It's a miracle that Zach Wilson hasn't taken that many in New York. So putting all that in perspective, and I'm thinking about all this, I mean, they have got some serious things that they need to address this offseason. I don't care if they go 500 for the next month and Aaron Rodgers thinks they're going to make the playoffs if he comes back and plays the last couple. His best bet would be to sit out the rest of this season, continue working and rehabbing to where he can be at his ultimate best next year. I know that his window's closing, but it's going to close even more if he comes in this year and gets beat up by that offensive line again, because he was only in there for 4 snaps to start. 4 snaps to start this season out and has already been knocked out. And you can have one great recovery process and do some things we've never seen before, but that offensive line hasn't improved since the week 1. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to come out there and think that you're going to lead this team to the playoffs and on this magical run, you got to have an offensive line. You got to have a foundation laid before you can live in the house or before you can build the rest of the house around it. And that house is only like maybe halfway built, and that's with Aaron Rodgers in the lineup. So they need to make some more moves to establish building that house during the offseason, and then they have a better chance. But right now, even though Zach Wilson looks bad, you're only as good as your offensive line, for one, and your play calling by your offensive coordinator as well.
I just listen, on none of that, I can dunk. At this point, you got to think Robert Saleh is still a coach of the year candidate. But the more the Jets struggle, obviously, the more he slides. But I'll put it this way. You aren't the only one to make the O-line point. Listen, you talk about that, the foundation of the house. It's obvious that there's a bathroom already in the house in question, because you handled talking that beep really well, Drew Willingham. You got it absolutely right. But the punchline is this. Some of us protected Aaron Rodgers as an injury risk before the season because of that offensive line. I didn't call 4 snaps in, I'll grant you that, but I knew it was sometime on the season and all of the above to that. So I'll put the bow on it to say this. If they had a better backup than Zach Wilson, or I forget the UConn guy's name, who's the third stringer, who's just complete, dumpster pelican. No, actually,
Trevor Siemian.
No, the other guy, the UConn guy, right? So I forget his name off the top of my head. He's not all that relevant because at the end of the day, he's not a dumpster pelican. He's what the dumpster pelican eats, and we'll leave it at that. So
definitely interesting to see when he is part of the prey. So moving on to the next game, there we have the LA Rams and the Seattle Seahawks, as the Rams walk away with a real close one with a 17-16 victory over the Seahawks. Matthew Stafford, 17 of 31, 190 yards with a touchdown and an interception. Geno Smith, 22 of 34 with 233 yards and a touchdown. And DK Metcalf, 5 receptions, 94 yards in the touchdown. Was this game a close game based on competition, or was it just... What are your thoughts there, sir?
Was it an ugly game because of competition, or ugly? Can I say both? Listen, any situation where you have Aaron Donald in the middle attacking a quarterback, you might remember the last time these two plays had emerged with a TikTok of Geno Smith being forced to force him down, and the audio picked him saying, "Oh God," before throwing the ball. There's video evidence of the threat that is Aaron Donald. Yes, he does have the same first and middle name as Rodgers too. I want everybody to clear. This is not me misremembering. That is actually a thing. I had to triple check that. I couldn't believe it either. But, listen, man, when the Rams come out, you have to try to take away their receiving games because their running game isn't there. You keep, let's just say you turn Cooper Kupp over to imply to give him no coffee, and then Puka Nacua is Puka negated. You have a chance to stop him, and holding Stafford to under 200 yards, to your point, is evidence of that. That's a defensive performance I never would expect from the Seahawks, so I will give them some credit. But at day's end, listen, if you want me to bet against Aaron Donald and him not being a factor in a game, you out your mind. But that being said, this is a big bit of damage to the Seahawks. They had a chance to take control here upcoming. I believe it's this weekend that they play the Niners to try to get some further ground on the NFC West. But this is a devastating blow for them in that race to have a division loss to a team that, to your point, is quite winnable there, Drew.
So Aaron Donald definitely makes a big impact on that defense on a regular basis for the Rams. For this week, though, I would say their two bigger stars of that defense would be Quentin Lake as well as Ernest Jones IV, which Ernest Jones IV had 5 tackles, 7 assists, and a half a sack. It was like he was almost involved on like every other play on the defense from what it felt like. He was moving around and was definitely keeping that game as tight as it was. Plus, when you look at what the Seahawks did, Geno Smith, 22 of 34, 233 yards and a touchdown, didn't turn the ball over in comparison to Matthew Stafford, who had 1 touchdown and interception. The Rams could have had a little bit more of a victory or a little bit more of a lead going into that victory had Matthew Stafford not turned the ball over and had they done a better job of protecting the ball when you look at the overall stats here for the Rams. So both teams had a turnover as they had both a quarterback that threw an interception, because you look, Drew Lock, it was 2 of 6 for 3 yards and an interception when he had to come in for Geno for a little bit, which put the icing on the cake as far as the Rams getting the victory there. And part of that was the pressure brought on by the Rams defense. So it looks more and more like that trade where they sent Drew Lock over from the Broncos along with those picks for Russell Wilson. We were calling it a mediocre move earlier this year, based on what we saw last year and how this year started in the first month. But now things are starting to pay dividends for that Denver Broncos team overall. In comparison, when you look at how Drew Lock was in Denver, now with what he did with the Seattle, it's not like he could close things out this past weekend, and he wasn't doing it in Denver. And it looks like Russell Wilson and Sean Payton may be starting to turn things around over there in Denver as well.
Listen, for all the trash talked upon Russell Carrington Wilson last year, a lot of that, too, people seem to have suddenly forgotten he played most of the year hurt in one way, shape, form, or fashion. And by the way, in case everybody needs a reminder, Nathaniel Hackett sucks at football, okay? So with all that in mind, I think I'm not here to say that Rusty has earned his contract. I'm not going there. But him coming up to a low bar of just being a game manager and handling business, it's a thing, that we left there. To that same point, Geno Smith has also managed games well. I don't put this loss on him necessarily in that route. Like you said, controls the ball, no turnovers. That's important. But by the way, you mentioned other Rams defenders eating. That starts at the defensive tackle spot too. How do you think guys roam free? Because they're busy trying to stop that force in the middle.
Hey, a man that knows all about the work within the trenches. I cannot downplay anything that you just said when it comes to that right there. Moving on to a team that we just spoke about as a result of this past team we talked about, and that being the Denver Broncos, who barely got that victory over the Minnesota Vikings in the 21-20 game the other night. Looking at what Russell Wilson did, 27 of 35, 259 yards, a touchdown with 8 carries, 21 yards, and a rushing touchdown as well. Joshua Dobbs, 20 of 32, 221 yards, a touchdown, an interception, and a lost fumble. Alexander Madison, 18 carries, 81 yards, and the Vikings offense, 175 total rushing yards. Looking at this game right here, what are your thoughts on how things worked out for the Broncos, but how both sides played in this game?
I find it appropriate that the next game after we go right to talking about Russell Carrington Wilson, and that stat line needs not do it doesn't need to do a whole lot more to add to the point I made that he's meeting the bar, but not necessarily crushing it and exceeding it, right? Again, not earning his contract. Josh Dobbs, listen, this is a tribute to the Broncos defense. Obviously, they've started to pick things up here late in the season, but when it comes to certain elements of the Vikings, let's just put it this way. I knew they had protection problems potentially, but this is where they're missing Dalvin Cook in protection help as well. Nobody wants to talk about that part. But yeah, for me, for those who want to pull back on Josh Dobbs suddenly out of nowhere, he can still perform well enough to have the Vikings sneak into a 7th spot and get that playoff berth in the just Well, dumpster pelican NFC, is that an appropriate usage here? I'm still trying to fill the seat here, Drew Willingham. Let me know.
You're doing a pretty good job. I would have to say so, Kyle Nash. I'm definitely not upset with how you're doing. Had to give you a little bit of total football talk whistle action right there. But with that being said, I have to give a shout out to Josh on the PSF app right here, who said good morning to Drew Willingham and the student of the game right there. So definitely to you over there on the app on that camera, and to you guys out there watching on this one for all the major platforms. Thank you as always for tuning in. When it comes right here to this game, and you're looking at Russell Wilson and what he did, I think it's more along the lines of Josh Dobbs, finally had a little bit too much pressure on him coming into this game as the type of game that it was, and with what he's done since he's come from Minnesota, going from Cleveland to Arizona to Minnesota within a short period of time. And then, you lose a game by 1 point. And, when you factor in the interception and the lost fumble, that's two different types of, turnovers right there that you're giving the other team two different opportunities to run away with the lead. And that's 14 more points you could have had back, or 10 or 7, or however you want to look at it. If you would have converted, that you could have added on to this total. And if you would have even gotten 6 points out of a touchdown or 2 field goals out of it, let alone, you still would have won by 5 points. So looking at this right here, the pressure was a little bit too much, and he had that turnover right there towards the end. They had a chance. The Vikings had a chance to win this game twice, and they fumbled the opportunity. Pardon the pun when it comes to that.
See what you did there, Drew Williams.
Yeah.
Don't apologize for that. You need to lean into that ish.
Well thrown out there, Kyle Nash. And, speaking of great opportunities and great things that we saw within this week 11 set of matchups, Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. As I put it wrong on the slate here, but the Kansas City Chiefs lose to the Eagles 21-17 as Jalen Hurts goes 14-22, 150 passing yards with an interception, 18 carries for 81 yards. Patrick Mahomes 24-43 for 177 passing yards, 2 touchdowns and interception with 6 carries for 38 yards. A recent pickup for the Eagles, Kevin Byard, 8 tackles with an interception. Devontae Smith, 6 receptions with 99 receiving yards. And DeAndre Swift, 12 carries for 76 yards, 3 receptions for 31 yards. Looking at this and how things played out on Monday Night Football, how do you think things went down when it comes to said matchup?
Listen, no disrespect to Cole Johnson in the preparation of his notes, but I think there's a key stat he's going to be missing here to better describe a metaphor for the outcome of this game. The Chiefs lead the league in drops. And that's the part that murdered them outright in this game, in similar fashion to their loss to open the season to the Detroit Lions and Man Campbell. Listen, for my money, this is the close and epic matchup you expected to get here at Arrowhead, and that's all I can really say about the matchup itself. I'm glad you mentioned Kevin Byard, the recent acquisition from the Titans. Him getting an interception in this game is exactly why the Eagles took him out of the bargain basement, as the Titans have shown me in making that trade before the deadline, that they're out on this year. They are out, to quote another show. But shouts to my guys, to William, Sports Debate Show. But with this in mind, I have to say that improvement, if he can stay on, is the key to a deep playoff run, and an element to what might get them back to the Super Bowl, is having shored up that secondary with that presence. And by the way, when it comes to Jalen's stat line, I like what I see there. Only throwing the ball 22 times, 18 carries for 81 yards. I would say that the interception is the only thing that hurts.
But did he wince as he got hurt?
I see what you did there, Willingham.
You brought up another show, and with that being said, Inner House Sports Debate will be back on Mondays. not releasing the release date yet. It'll be a little bit as we are around the holidays. It's going to be a little bit, but when it does come back, it'll be back on Mondays.
Winter is coming. I love it.
Winter is coming. So yes, for those of you that are excited and ready for that show to come back, as I am and miss it, just has some things going on and had to work some things around in order to keep everything else going for Sartoba Media. Sometimes you got to put your biggest project on the back burner for a little bit to keep everything else afloat. But when it comes to this game right here and watching this game last night, I do have to take a little bit of that shade away and bring it on myself, as I was the one who put in the numbers for the Monday Night Football game on this slate and could have switched things around for the upset part. But with the biting the kneecap situation, which we will get to very shortly, I just felt like things needed to stay as is. So no shade on Cole Johnson. Basically, he had it all set up, and I had to just add the Monday Night Football game in there, and I could have added it a little bit better. But looking at this slate right here, I have to say, and it was definitely great presence of leadership from Jalen Hurts in certain situations out there with what he's doing. But the brotherly shove play that they have been notable for doing, and they did it again last night.
Oh, the
was a
quarterback
big
by its
yes.
proper name. Sorry, this is me going after the national media. This is not your fault, Drew Willingham.
I know. I'm just playing into it. But when you look at that play right there, if they didn't convert on that touchdown right there, which was a big play by Devontae Smith before that, where he caught the ball and was down there on the 1 yard line that set up that 1 yard rushing quarterback sneak or whatnot. Had they not had that play right there, this game could have easily gone the Chiefs' way, because the Chiefs were leading for a bit in this game before that big play turned the tide of events for the Eagles.
Get ready to pull up the Chief to be acknowledged here, because I think that clip's going to become very relevant. Drew Willingham, name me a center in the NFL.
I mean, besides Jason Kelce, I can't think of one.
Jason Kelce. Mother fathering Kelce, whose middle name I should probably learn at this point, if I'm being completely honest. I already know Travis Michael Kelce for his brother. You're going to go up here and talk about Swift, again, in a Kelce context, and steal from the Hall of Fame center that makes the quarterback sneak so prolific and productive as it is there. Not even bring up his name. Is that it?
Well, with that, since you like to teach me everybody's middle names, I will teach you his. It's Jason Daniel Kelce.
Jason Daniel Kelce is the one screaming into the mic, "Acknowledge me."
Acknowledge me.
Well, we just acknowledge not only you, but your entire birth name here on Total Football Talk. Hopefully you appreciate that if you ever see this episode there, JDK. When it comes to the upsets of the week,
you just threw the initials up. Oh, that's awesome. I'm sorry.
I'm glad that I can make Kyle definitely proud with that one. But with this, hopefully we can make you proud with the upset. When I say I hope it can make you proud, because it definitely didn't make me proud when it comes to this situation right here. The New York Giants earned the upset of the week for Total Football Talk as they win over the Commanders 31-19. The long-lost relative of Danny DeVito, Tommy DeVito, who I've said on several episodes now, doesn't even deserve to be called Tommy. We call him Tony DeVito. He for 18 of 26, 246 yards and 3 touchdowns. Saquon Barkley, 14 carries, 83 yards, with 4 receptions for 57 yards and 2 touchdowns. Darius Slayton, 4 receptions, 82 yards and a touchdown. The Giants defense, 4 sacks, including Kayvon Thibodeau's 2, with 3 interceptions and 3 fumble recoveries by the defense as well. Sam Howell, 31 of 45, 255 yards with touchdown and 3 interceptions. The Commanders' offense, 174 rushing yards. The Commanders' defense, 9 sacks, with David Mayo contributing to 2 of those sacks, and they still lost 31-19. What are your thoughts when it comes to this upset of the week here for NFL Week 11?
Upset. Like, listen, buddy. What's the premier dish in that part of the nation? Crab cakes. I bring up crab cakes because that's some home cooking there, Red Tail fan. Sorry, Commander fan. Okay.
That's terrible.
but unfortunately accurate. You could have said the Packers over the Chargers. You could have said the Broncos over the Vikings. You could have gone a lot of other direct. Ain't nobody but you upset about this. All right, bro. This is two trash teams playing each other, and just 2 or 3 weeks after you trying to get up in my grill, just like Mike Bernier did on the Student of the Game midseason award show, bing, trying to tell me that Sam Howell is a big deal and the real deal and a big surprise. There's a reason why Samuel Howell has multiple L's in his name. Come on, really? Let the Giants defense do this to you? And now I got to act like this game's a feature on this docket. I'm glad you told me you wrote the notes, because I wouldn't have gone in on Cole Johnson without him here to defend himself. But you are here to stand down, and you will, Drew Willingham. I don't care if it's not a debate show. This is not a good take by you. This is not an upset. This is two garbage NFC East teams that are a waste of my time. Hey, at least we're not in the ACC. Am I right?
I know. Here we go with the Sam Howell shade.
What?
All right, people. When it comes to this situation, right
Let
here,
me talk to you.
Kyle has got this big, burning fire to throw shade at an ACC quarterback known as Sam Howell because he has 2 L's in his name.
What?
I said he had 2 L's in his name.
What?
Go ahead and Google it. You'll see he has 2 L's in his name.
What?
Not 1, but 2.
What?
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, not 1, but 2.
What?
So we're going to have a description here where we talk about a man and the way his name is spelled.
What?
Kyle Nash comes on my show and wants to throw shade at my quarterback with how many L's he has in his name.
What?
Kyle Nash.
Stop it. Get some help.
Looking at this guy right here, Sam Howell, he throws consistently for over 300 yards a game on a regular basis. Now, you could throw part of that on EB on how Eric Bieniemy is this great offensive coordinator. Well, if he was this great offensive coordinator, then he would have just put up only 19 points against the New York Giants and go 0-2 against a dumpster Pelican team known as the New York Giants. The New York Giants are the 3rd dumpster Pelican in this photo right here, right behind the Walmart bag to the right of them. They are the ones that I would have to say are the major dumpster Pelicans of the NFC East.
What?
The man with 2 L's definitely has been doing a great job overall for the Commanders this season. When you look at how the production they've been getting out of their quarterback play over the past, 10 years since RG3 went down with that injury. And of course, you had Kirk Cousins who threw some flashes of great play, but he didn't stay with the Commanders and hasn't been around in a while. So I can't even fathom talking about him at this point. Sam Howell did have 255 yards and a touchdown, but he did have 3 interceptions. And one thing that I did spend time on yesterday on Commander's Gridiron Report, bing, and I can do it too, but I don't do it as good as Kyle Nash, but I've been practicing. But when it comes to the Commander's Gridiron Report and the talking of one Sam Howell, I did mention yesterday how 2 of those 3 interceptions were absolutely terrible decisions that he shouldn't have made, because especially on that last interception where he was trying to throw the ball out of bounds, which actually his last 2 interceptions, but the last one more notably, tries to throw the ball out of bounds and throws a lame duck pass that was still 5 yards away from going out of bounds that was intercepted. And it wasn't tipped. The ball wasn't tipped. He wasn't hit or anything as he threw it. It was just a bad throw at a bad angle. Didn't quite go out of bounds. Very similar to how when Patrick Mahomes threw that ball away last night, and it wasn't outside of the line of scrimmage. It didn't make it to the line of scrimmage, and for that, he got the intentional grounding. I was surprised that he didn't get the intentional grounding on that 3rd interception potentially, but had the ball not been intercepted, it probably would have been an intentional grounding. So your 3rd interception of the day or a bad penalty on 4th, it's still a bad situation. Either way, you have to give more credit to Brian Daboll in this game, who, for the record, for the New York Giants, they are not as bad as what their record portrays. They need some help over there on that team. They need to have a consistent quarterback that can stay healthy. But if Tommy DeVito can do what he did yesterday for the rest of this season, for the rest of this season, okay, not just yesterday, but the rest of the season consistently, they could have another Brock Purdy on their hands. Not as great of a quarterback as a third string quarterback and someone who's a Mr. Irrelevant, but someone who could come up the ranks from a third string quarterback who can do well enough to earn the starting quarterback job. Will he have the success that Brock Purdy has had? No, but he may do better than one Daniel Jones or a Tyrod Taylor. They can give you consistent play at the quarterback position and build and get better each week and be cheaper to where you can build around him for quite some time because he's still fairly young. He's a rookie himself. So think about it. If he can play like he did yesterday for the rest of the season, which they won't, but if they did, then you could have something potentially cooking in the fires over there in New Jersey.
Wait a minute. So, okay. You came up for Sam Howell and then cite the fact that he had 3 interceptions. I mean, listen, debate shows, which this isn't a debate show, but debate shows are a lot different when the guy makes the argument for me. But okay, sure. You know.
What?
And by the way, I say when you try to make the argument for me,
What?
when you say, hey, Kyle, take a chill pill, I can tell you're tired, I will make the argument for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That one aside, it's the most beautiful thing, and it's appropriate that's an ACC quarterback that you're making this point to. You're aspiring to be Mr. Irrelevant. That's where you are in D.C. and in East Rutherford.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen, start with the O-line in both cities, and then we'll come back to that conversation. How about that? That's where I'll let you off the hook, Drew Willingham.
Yes, both offensive lines. I mean, I've spoken about it on several occasions. Very similar to how things are going in New York, except for, you know, the difference between that is Aaron Rodgers got knocked out in 4 plays. Sam Howell's taken 51 sacks through 11 games. I mean, he had 47 going into this game this past weekend, which is a lot. And he's getting closer and closer to not only, you know, breaking, but then setting the all-time sacks record for a season as long as he stays healthy. But every single sack the kid takes, and especially the one hit that he took while running the ball out of bounds, and was on the ground for a minute. When he laid there for a minute, I was pretty concerned because it only takes one hit to get some type of impactful injury, and all of the other hits can add up into something else. So I'm pretty concerned about that in all seriousness when it comes to Sam Howell in the future, and we'll talk about that more with the upcoming games that we have when we talk about the Week 12 preview. With that being said, you know, we talked about the upset of the week. And I know Kyle Nash may disagree a little bit with this one, but we will definitely have to talk about that here when we talk about the game of the week. And that game of the week that we have right here was a matchup that we had against someone that he likes to call Man Campbell and his team that he leads, the Detroit Lions, as they won 31-26 over, you know, a team that has DJ Moore, that 7 receptions with 96 yards and a touchdown that he did, along with the Bears offense when they had 183 rushing yards combined on the day. Justin Fields, 16-23 for 169 yards, a touchdown, 18 carries for 104 yards, but that wasn't enough to go over the Man Campbell-led team with Jared Goff, 23-35, 236 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a great statistic of 3 interceptions to lead his team with turnovers towards a victory. How do you feel with this situation right here for the game of the week?
You know, it's tough for me to for whom to put the indictment and place the trees appropriately for the shade. I'm always inclined, for a long time, I've been inclined to scoff at Goff, especially when he comes out and throwing 3 interceptions like this. But we know the Lions' defense is bad. That's why the Bears got 26 points. But then for Man Campbell to find a way to bite kneecaps and take the Lions to an 8-2 record. I think the last time they did that was the 90s or something. I don't know. It's a long time ago is what I'm trying to tell you, Drew Willingham. Like, it may even further back than that. I saw the stat. I can't remember the year. The point is, we are on hallowed, sacred, historical ground here with what the Lions are doing. And this may not have been a hallowed, historical, sacred ground game. Well, it was certainly hysterical. I say hysterical. That's a Freudian slip. Historical game. It was certainly historical in its own way, Drew Willingham, but I would, the Decatur Staleys were involved. Of course, it's historical. Look it up. It's history. Yes, the Bears were formerly the Decatur Staleys. That's the joke. But yeah, this is one of those divisional games where the stuff gets weird, and it's about who wants it more and who's better built to do long haul attacks. That's obviously the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a team that we are not used to seeing the type of production that we've seen with the Lions. Now 8-2. The best season they had was in 1991 when they went 12-4 and made it all the way to the NFC Championship game and lost the heartbreaker to my team, the formerly known as the Redskins. And a team in a documentary that you can see, which I happened to be fortunate enough. Not sure if I was fortunate enough to be awake at 1 o'clock in the morning, but I was fortunate enough to be able to see that on Amazon Prime, the Bye Bye Barry documentary featuring Barry Sanders and talking about his career with the Detroit Lions, along with his exit from the NFL, which I have 20 minutes left of the movie to watch, which I needed to get some sleep so I could be here this morning. But I didn't get to the very end where they're talking about like the reason why, but what was alluding to that was, the beating that he was taking, the direction of the team and where it was going. And, this Lions team had not been the same since he retired after the 1998 season. They've had some flashes in the pan where they looked like they were going to be okay, but just never got over the hump. This is the closest thing we've seen in 32 years to that team that Barry Sanders was a part of that made it as far as they did, and they're not even doing it with Barry Sanders. So looking at the situation right here, and the wins don't have to be looking great every time, especially with the fact that Jared Goff threw for 3 touchdowns. Threw for 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions here and still got the win. We were talking about in other games earlier in this slate how teams were, losing, and you had a quarterback that was throwing for more interceptions than touchdowns. Given the example of the Commanders game with Sam Howell, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. Now, the difference here is Jared Goff had 1 more touchdown and won the game by 5 points. But given the fact of how things were as close statistically in the rise of the Lions and how nobody's expected them to be 8-2 at this point in the year. And, they are playing a suspect Bears team, but it is a division game. And the way things were going when you were watching this game earlier on in the first half, it looked like, in my opinion, the Bears were going to win this game, and especially with the way that Jared Goff was with being turnover friendly. So when I put all that in perspective and think about it, I can't disagree with Cole putting this as pretty much the game of the week when it comes to that, because the reason why I feel like it's the game of the week is with what Man Campbell proved with how elite this team is, making it to 8 wins inside of 10 games.
I mean, that's fun and all, but like Super Bowl rematch didn't make game of the week. All right. Listen, I'm just a guest. I'm just asking questions. I'm saying.
Hey, if they weren't overly using the brotherly shove push that they want to dub out here in the media,
you mean the quarterback sneak? Yeah.
The quarterback sneak, if they weren't overusing it and overdubbing it out there to where it would be like it wouldn't be as expected on a weekly basis, then maybe I'd give it the game of the week.
Okay, well, I'm sure Jason Daniel Kelsey will use your tears to form his beard, but we can move on.
Well, they can get mad at Taylor Swift because the Swifties weren't about, and they didn't bring more hype to the game. So if there was more Swifties in the nation, they were there, and Taylor Swift wasn't on tour, then it might have been the game of the week there, Kyle Nash.
Or there would have been more lights, and there would have been more drops by the Chiefs, and it would have been close. Who knows? I don't know.
Very much, because Valdez-Scantling and Watson dropped some big plays there inside the last 2 minutes on their possession, because had Montez Valdez-Scantling caught that ball right there, they would have had that touchdown. they would have won the game. Now, the only problem would have been is they would have left too much time on the clock because they still would have been like a minute and 40 some seconds left. And, excuse me, the Eagles still had timeouts. So there would have been a little bit too much time and probably would have given the Eagles a chance to come back. But shoulda, coulda, woulda, we won't know because he wouldn't have caught that touch. He didn't catch that touchdown. So we don't know at this point if that would have been the case or not.
It would have been electric football that last 40, though, Drew, is what I'm talking about. You have that situation again. By the way, I don't know if you've noticed, the Kansas City Chiefs are currently a defensive team, and that touchdown to get it back for the Eagles isn't a gimme, even with a minute 40 left, as much as I do respect Jalen Hurts.
Well said there, Kyle Nash. And for that, because you put out my fire, we will have to try to bring it back during this first commercial break. We'll see you guys here in about 2.5 minutes.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989. On two. Ready? Break.
We're just getting started. Total Football Talk will return right after this.
Everything Boston. I love you morons. You kids from the block, New Edition.
Dear whatever the law firm is. Sincerely, the U.S. Supreme Court.
Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. Go yourself again, Jason Whitlock.
Ready to hang with some fellas who know football? Let's ride. LC Muscles 28.
I think they're the most overrated defense in the league.
Steel Sermon.
We did not trail for a single second.
Tiny Tim.
McCarthy is a bonehead.
A Pizzle 90.
I'm going with my boys. Fins up, baby.
Get ready for the Four Horsemen of Pick'ems. Every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central on YouTube. Poppy J.
You got the option to cry for the government. You got the option to protest. You got the option to keep buying, but this is also an option.
Wise El Jefe.
We're the first tech geeks. We're the first gamers. We're the first everything. Everything. Like Gen X's, we are the ones.
BS3 Network proudly presents the crew from the New York boroughs who never wants that smoke. Nah, they want that fire. Poppy J and Wise El Jefe, Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. Check your local listings for your viewing and listening pleasure.
Welcome back to Total Football Talk. We've gone through our Week 11 games, and now we have to get to what Cole and I like to call the Gridiron Scoop. And starting off with the team that Kyle knows very well, and that being the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the fact that they're in a great spot after Trevor Lawrence leads the team to victory. Now, Kyle, with that being said, have the Jaguars fully bounced back from last Sunday's performance?
It's a little too soon to declare that because they're truly not back until they beat Houston, should they do so here on Sunday. And that's a very losable game with what C.J. Stroud has done. We're talking about a rookie who's already the obvious Rookie of the Year candidate and is already getting talks. And at this point, I don't mind him being like, if you have a top 5 list of MVP candidates, it makes a butt ton of sense that CJ Stroud is on it, just like I have DeMeco Ryans in a top 5 of Coach of the Year. But these two things, in my opinion, are obviously interchangeable for the Texans. But bringing it back to the Jags, listen, I was there at Everbank Stadium after both the Niner and Titans games. After the Niners game, sources tell me that Trevor Lawrence had his worst game of his career. That source was one Trevor Lawrence. Okay, so with all that in mind, he owned what went down that day and acknowledged himself as the air quotes problem, and then turned it around the next week. And listen, credit to Jeffrey Simmons for getting in the backfield a few times and forcing him to shake out of the pocket. Trevor had 2 touchdowns with his feet to keep the red zone production up. So they had all that going for him. But with all that, let me conclude by saying this. It was defensive end/edge rusher Josh Allen that said, when asked if Houston was a playoff game, he said not only is that, he felt like that Titans game was a playoff game as they're battling to win the division repeat as AFC South champions. So that should speak to the intensity with which the Jags are approaching this football game, Drew.
Very, very well said. And bringing that up with your current synopsis on how things are going for the Jaguars, we will see how things shape up going into the holidays, as we are now at our first holiday part of the season with Thanksgiving right around the corner here in a couple of days. Let's go ahead and take it into our next part of the Gridiron Scoop. Perfect Brock Purdy throws 3 touchdown passes to lead the 49ers past the Buccaneers 27-14. Is it safe to now compare Brock Purdy to Joe Montana?
Stay off the weed.
Stop it. Get some help.
What are we doing, Drew Willingham? No, and no disrespect to you or Cole. I know you're doing it for a compelling presentation. I don't think anybody's trying to crown Brock Purdy at this point. While it's a fantabulous story, let's also remember that one Joseph Clifford Montana is a great and arguably the greatest to do it at his position. Yeah, I get it. Brady allegedly, whatever. That defense carried the first 3 Super Bowls. Just nobody wants to talk about it, unless, of course, you happen to be Richard Seymour, as I did during his Hall of Fame induction. But enough about that. I'm dropping names. Here's what I'm trying to say, Willingham. No, stop it. Just not yet. Not really. With all the talent surrounding him. Yeah, I know. Joseph Clifford Montana had Jerry Rice, who I would drop his middle name if I remembered it. I forgot. Whatever. That's my bad. I'll look it up. We'll have it. But the fact that's a thing. My guy, Brock Purdy, doesn't always look Purdy, but he's carried plenty of stock and doing his job and managing the game. I've made the argument that Joseph Clifford Montana is a game manager himself, but that team was better because of Joe. Brock Purdy's good, I think, because of his surrounding cast. He's just learned to embrace them and manage them. So throw up Bishop Bullwinkle if you would be so kind here, Drew Willingham.
He's not available, unfortunately.
Then I'll do it. Hell to the no.
Oh, wait, actually, I was wrong.
Hell to the no. To the no, 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 no. Hell no, no. To the no, no.
Let me talk to you.
When it comes to my play on the previous clip,
that's terrible.
I should have known better.
Acknowledge me.
But when it comes to most people's opinions about that, they'll probably say that.
Ain't nobody care. Who cares? Ain't nobody care.
And if you do care,
let's get ready to rumble.
Because my thoughts on Brock Purdy being the next coming of Joe Montana.
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell no, no, to the no, no.
So Kyle Nash and I definitely agree with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of you are probably saying, Kyle Nash, and you were agreeing with this?
What?
Yes, we are definitely agreeing with this.
What?
And if you are upset about that,
stop it. Get some help.
Because you should not be upset at the fact that we are stating that we don't think that Brock Purdy is the second coming of Joe Montana. Because there was only one other second coming of Joe Montana, and he recently retired, and that is Thomas Edward Patrick Brady II.
Yeah, he never ran like Joe, but I digress.
He has 7 Super Bowls. He surpassed Joe and left him in the dust.
What?
Wins are not a quarterback stat, Drew Willingham. Do better. Do better.
What?
Do better.
What?
Do better. Wins are not a quarterback stat.
What?
Listen, don't make me go Captain America. I could do this all day. I know you got to fill 3 hours, but come on.
Stop it. Get some help.
There we go. We're good.
No, definitely well played. Now, to continue on with the Gridiron Scoop, we've got one more thing to throw back out there, and I've got one more transition. So my apologies for not clicking the button a little soon enough. When it comes to our last topic in the Gridiron Scoop, the Lions have started NFL season, 2023 NFL season, 8-2 for the first time since 1962. Are the Lions legitimate Super Bowl contenders coming out of the NFC?
Cue up the swimwear because I am in. Listen, and I know, but Drew, let me talk to you. All right.
Let me talk to you.
There's a reason I'm going here. Excellent pickup by you, by the way. The reason it's possible. Let's go this way. For those people that try to battle that Michael Jeffrey Jordan isn't the GOAT. By the way, yes, he is. Stop it. Your LeBron hate is unreasonable, Willingham, but nonetheless, Michael Jeffrey Jordan, still the GOAT. Deal with it. A lot of the criticism levied against Michael Jeffrey Jordan is because the East was allegedly so easy. But the NFC is easy right now. We saw the Eagles get past the Niners. I'm not saying the Eagles are a bad team, but the way they got past the Niners by hurting Brock Purdy, who was the third stringer at the time, and they're throwing Josh Johnson and even CMC's having to play quarterback. It was a mess. A key injury somewhere, somebody limited, and also, by the way, the whole situation with maybe a quarterback being limited. Now granted, it didn't stop Patrick Mahomes II, but the punchline's this. Funny things happen in playoff games, and the morale favorite, the guys who I feel like have the best motivation to continue to battle to get to the final game, they'll probably get served. I'm not here to say they're winning the damn thing, but to get to the Super Bowl, as the question's worded, I am not prepared to rule it out. They are a legitimate contender.
I don't know how I had muted it for a second, so my apologies for those of you listening that didn't hear me. But basically what I was saying, to compliment with what Kyle said, we're at this point where they are 8-2 for the first time since 1962. But in my opinion, if they don't get to at least 12-5 or 13-4 this season, they don't even match the success of what they had 32 years ago. So let alone what they did in 1962, which is many, many moons ago. In my opinion, they at least need to match to basically live up to the success that they're having this year. They need to get to at least 12-5 or 13-4 and make it to the NFC Championship to basically live up to the hype of where they're at this year and this documentary for Barry Sanders, and to finally do something for the first time since he retired in 1998. It has been 25 years since we saw Barry Sanders play, and we haven't, besides Megatron and the little bit of flashes in the pan we got with him being there with Matthew Stafford, we haven't seen much success come from the Lions since Barry retired 25 years ago. And this in itself, seeing with what one man Campbell has done in a short period of time with turning things around from a leadership perspective and getting these pieces together to have this type of success in a tough part, being where they're at in the NFC, I have to say, being 8-2 through 10 games is not an easy feat. Being 9-1 for the Eagles is definitely not an easy feat, but being 8-2, coming from Detroit, in Michigan, and the things that are happening throughout that franchise, throughout its history, I have to give the credit where credit's due. And when it comes to the question at hand, legitimate Super Bowl contenders coming out of the NFC, it's kind of tough when you got Philadelphia and you got other teams that are on the come up as well. I don't know if right now, if I can answer that, it being this point through 11 games already, 10 games for them, 11 weeks of the season. They still have 7 games left to go. I don't know if I can actually answer that fully right now. Kyle, you did a great job with how you said it, but for me, it's a little tough because when you have an 8-2 team, I want to say yes, but they've had success this year and they started being able to come up last year. But in my opinion, it's not enough success to warrant them as Super Bowl contenders yet.
Well, you mentioned the other teams in the NFC that they have to compete with. Other than the Niners and Eagles, who you got, Chief?
I know, but you only have 2 teams playing against each other in the NFC Championship game. You still have to make it to the championship game to face someone else, whether it be the 49ers and the Eagles in that game. And I don't know if they can beat the other teams in the playoffs leading up to that.
They only have to beat one of them. And that's what I'm saying. You're dropping great stats about the Lions organization that indict the NFC. And you mentioned that the Lions have to get to that certain point, the 12 wins and all of that to surpass that. But to be legitimate Super Bowl contenders, what I'm trying to tell you is they don't have to. It's just like my point with Calvin Ridley when we talked about that a while back on that famous clip from the In-N-Out Sports Space Show. He may not be the best receiver on the team, but he doesn't have to for the Jags to be successful. They may not match the Barry Sanders days that you referred to in 91. But what I'm telling you is they don't have to. All they have to do is surpass one, and you're going to try to tell me that the Niners are a guarantee with their style of play in history to get that far healthy again? We can guarantee that the Eagles can handle business? We already saw the Detroit Lions dethrone a defending Super Bowl champion. Contender doesn't mean they're getting there. I'm telling you they're a threat. That's what contender means to me.
Well said. And speaking of quotes, quote, when it comes to this situation right here with Waz El Jefe, the happiest 3-8 Giants fan is in the house. Close quote.
I hope you checked out me dunking on your boy Sam Howell. I'm sure he'll enjoy that.
Oh, I'm pretty sure that he will definitely get a lot of great enjoyment out of that. Go back and see that if you haven't seen it already. They're Waz El Jefe when it comes to that. Now, when it comes to another situation that we have there, Kyle Nash, we have to discuss the grand champions, which is AKA our dogs of the week. Well, I clicked the wrong one. It looks like the grand champ disappeared. Well, actually, no, it goes from the outro to the intro. My apologies. I'm still getting used to being at the helm of the controls for this.
Total football talk.
Yeah, so I have to get used to these certain controls. I'm usually in Kyle Nash's seat, okay?
Hey,
so
that graphic was worth the wait, buddy. It's okay.
Now, when it comes to our dog of the week, we basically, out of all the games that we had throughout in week 11, we basically pick one person out of all the games that we feel is like our MVP of the week out of all the games. So if you were to look at all the teams that we talked about throughout that week 11 review of the recap of everything that we talked about in week 11, who would be your one person, if we had to pick an MVP based on the play from week 11?
Well, listen, I kind of cornered myself into this. I called the Jets and Bills game a must-win for both teams to stay alive in the playoff hunt, especially for the Bills with all these, the mental impact this could have, the morale of the team. By the way, that Jets quarterback I was trying to remember earlier was Tim Boyle, formerly of UConn. At any rate, Josh Allen, of course, is the dog of the week then for me, because not only was business handled, he actually served to prove the franchise right in the recent firing of the OC temporarily. And for all the chatter that's been on Twitter against him and that move, he's done enough to settle that down for the moment here. By the way, he did have an interception, but going 20 for 32 with 275 and 3 touchdowns with 5 for 15 rushing as well. That's a pretty fine stat line against a team that's an awesome defense. My dog is Josh Allen.
Definitely well played there, Kyle Nash. And for that, yeah, I was going to side with you, but I actually want to take this into a different direction and go with someone who you threw a lot of praise on earlier in this show, and that is one that you have to give to the amount of receiving yards he's had this year for Miami, and that is Tyreek Hill. 10 receptions, 146 yards for a touchdown. You know, having 1,200 yards already at this point in the year, helping lead the Dolphins to a 20-13 victory over the Raiders. Of course, Tua did great, 28-39 for 325 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he had an interception and a lost fumble. With that being said, I feel like the bigger impact for that offense, and has been for this year and for Tua, is Tyreek Hill. And for that, I have to give him my dog of the week when it comes to this situation here.
Awesome take, Drew. Awesome take. I mean, listen, Kyle, the game was close. Yeah, but when you're trying to run the game from the receiver position, a little bit difficult. Reason why Tyreek Hill is the student of the game midseason MVP.
Absolutely. And that's a great award to give at this point of the year. And for that many yards, I mean, at the midway point, he was on pace to hit 2,000 receiving yards. Still could. Yes, still very well could. We could see something special by the end of this season, as long as things stay on the come up here for Miami, and we'll see how that goes. But with that being said, we'll have to take things into the featured attractions. And before we do that, we do have another commercial break to take. And with that being said, we will see you guys here very shortly, here in about 3 minutes.
Coming up next, the featured attractions. This is Total Football Talk. Comey Media Incorporated, creating content magic in the real world.
Little right here. Look at the inside of these cakes. Now, when you bite into it, just as I demonstrated while you were talking at the beginning of your discussion right there, I could taste the drugs inside of this cake, Sick. I could taste the addiction within the cream filling of this cake right here, to where they not only us with that cake right there, but they made an ice cream out of it. They made an ice cream out of it. A 1-pint Christmas tree cake ice cream. Look at that little just smile up there. Look, she is up to no good on there. Look at that. Look at that smile on there, Sick. She knows that she got you. Got him is what's in her mind right now.
Acknowledge me.
Look at that little smile right there. She's up to no good.
D. Willie in the evening. Thursdays at 11:15 p.m. Eastern, 10:15 p.m. Central. Exclusively on Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, look. Hey, stop playing games. Y'all already know. Go ahead and toss him some Willie Bucks. Ain't nobody playing around. Hey, $sign D Willie 87. Go ahead and hit him up on the Cash App and go ahead and give him some Willie Bucks. Look at Drew looking stoic, ladies and gentlemen. Stoic on that $10 bill. So go ahead, slide my man over some Willie Bucks, and we good. That's all I'm saying. We good. Slide some Willie Bucks.
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
If you're looking for a sports program that gives you the flavor.
Washington Commanders? Really?
This whole thing stinks to high heaven.
That pulls no punches.
Thuggish act by a thuggish actor.
That gives you some humor.
Praise everything LeBron does and never criticize it.
If you want a show that gives you good times, then this is that show. BS3 Network proudly presents
I am Cole Johnson, and welcome to
Cole Sports with a Z. Every Friday on Patreon and every Saturday on YouTube, Spreaker, and all other outlets.
Back to Total Football Talk is we are back from commercial break. And when it comes to what we have next on the slate, we got to talk about the featured attraction. Featured attractions are here. And with that being said, we got to start it off with the first game on that list, and that is a little bit of Thursday 8:20 p.m. kickoff action between the 7-3 49ers and the 6-4 Seattle Seahawks. Now, the 49ers have the 5.5 advantage of this when it comes to this. When it comes to this game right here, kickoff being Thursday, again, what is more important to the 49ers' success? The protection of Brock Purdy or the defensive line, or getting Christian McCaffrey the ball? What are your thoughts when it comes to that question there, Kyle Nash?
Well, here's the thing, Drew Willingham. First of all, let me remind you that this game's taking place on what is known as Gray Thursday, the later portion of Thanksgiving that then leads into Black Friday, the official start of the Christmas shopping season. I know people already have their trees up and, they took off their Mariah Carey cat outfits to put on their Mariah Carey Santa hats for All I Want for Christmas is the song that I can't stand. But I digress. Don't get me started with what George Michael does every holiday to me. That's just another form of audio pollution. But say all that to say this. I bring up the holiday season because I owe you a Christmas card there, Commander fan, for the arrival of Chase Young. Woo, boy. Merry Christmas, mother beep. Okay? That's all I have to say about that. That's the gift that keeps on giving. By the way, you want to talk about the gift that keeps on giving? How about the ball to Christian McCaffrey? Kyle Shanahan, say what you will about him. He is always going to find a way to get a running back a ball in a creative fashion. That ain't a challenge. And I've already been on this very show earlier today, Drew Willingham, telling you about Trent Williams and how he is the actual MVP of this team. So obviously, the answer is to make sure that Brock is protected to keep things Purdy. See what I did there?
I guess
You can't handle the truth.
When it comes to how you're feeling about Chase Young, because for me, it's been pretty tough to handle that situation because, they held up the last minute to make that move, and the best they got was a third-round pick. And Chase Young is definitely much better than a third-round pick. Montez Sweat, they got a second-round pick. And he already signed a 4-year extension with the Bears. And it's looking like the 49ers are going to have an opportunity to do something very similar with Chase Young, as he's already probably liking, I've heard some interviews already where he's liking the culture in San Francisco a little bit better than what he was dealing with in Washington. I can't fault him for that. I can, and it's not a big shocker there. Yes, I see you over there, Kyle Nash.
It's the Home Alone face because I made the holiday point earlier. You see what I did there?
Yeah, well, you got your big Christmas present for the next 3 or 4 years, especially if he signs an extension. So congratulations. And if you don't get a Super Bowl out of that trade, then it was a major failure.
Did you say Merry Christmas, you filthy animal? Is that what you just said to me?
Yeah, I wish I had that clip, but until then, I'll at least give you this.
Stop it. Get some help.
Because, again, if you guys do not get a Super Bowl within, let's say throughout the tenure of Chase Young's stay in San Francisco, and let's say if he does sign an extension and is there for the next 3 to 4 years, if you guys don't get a Super Bowl with that pick, especially stealing him for a 3rd round pick, then that trade was a failure.
No, not for the discount that they got him at the 3rd round as a 3rd round pick. To your point, my good friend, the trade isn't a failure. That's a failure in other places, maybe. But
if you don't win a Super Bowl in the next few years with Nick Bosa and Chase Young on opposite sides of each other, then it was a total failure.
Okay, well, I like how you moved the goalpost there, but that wasn't the question. You said the trade is already a success. Now they'd have to finish the job. That statement I will 100% agree with, no question.
No, I get that, but basically the whole synopsis of everything, like I said, if they resign him and he's there for the next 3 to 4 seasons, and they do not get a Super Bowl between him and Nick Bosa being on that side on the defense, on opposite sides, causing terror to the opposing offenses, in my opinion, that is going to be a failure because just like they wasted the potential of him in Washington, okay, and you don't utilize on it, and you're trying to throw shade on how things are ran within the office of Washington, which I oblige and will definitely speak up on that as well because I've had a little bit more firsthand experience with that. Okay? So when I think about that, if you don't win a Super Bowl or get to a Super Bowl with Chase Young, then it was a failure. But I will go more out on a limb and say you should win it because you've already been with Kyle Shanahan as a coach. You just haven't won. So, and you will. And I feel like now, because of what you've got leading the offense now with Brock Purdy, with what you established last year, and the addition with what you made on defense, there's no excuse at this point to not get to the Super Bowl.
I think the excuse has been health, and I'll leave it at that,
Yeah, and, the games that the 49ers lost earlier this year, I feel like, when they went 5-0 and then lost the 3 consecutive ones not too long ago, I don't think that they would have lost 3 consecutive games had this trade happened earlier in the season, like while they were still 5-0 and they made the trade. I don't think they would have lost 3 straight games after going 5-0.
I mean, well, listen, and we're starting to make this a debate show again. That's my bad. But again, I would remind you who the MVP of the 49ers was and how much time he missed in those 3 games. Fun fact, not Chase Young, Trent Williams. Chase Young fixing the defense and getting in the face of a Joey Burr, would be helpful. I don't know that it changes and allows the offense to score the points that they would need to have turn back time, so to speak, but I'm not trying to share that information.
Who's giving them the business?
Moving on to the next question, a part of this topic right here. How can the Seahawks stop getting off to slow starts in games?
Golly, I think that's an element of the conservative offense you've come to know, love, and get frustrated by if you're Russell Carrington Wilson under the Pete Carroll regime. Basically, it's a matter of finishing your drives if you're going to open up. Like, they just take some time to jive, find the right attack, and start to score. And listen, DK Metcalf's an awesome receiver, but Kenneth Walker has been allegedly dinged up. That's a whole situation, but you have an offense that's good. I wouldn't call them explosive, and I think that's a factor for the Seahawks when it comes to their situation. And yeah, slow starts have kind of killed them. I think even the people in the Seahawk Shack on the Pro Sports Fans app would agree with that as well.
Definitely well said with that one. I definitely agree with that. Now, when it comes to the predictions for this game right here, again, the 49ers 7-3 against the Seahawks 6-4. What are your predictions for this Thursday night contest?
Listen, this pick may seem like an odyssey, and people are accused me of being Homer. See what I did there? Anyways, it's some historical schmack. I happen to be Greek. It's okay. Listen, the punchline's this, man. Say what you will about either of these offenses. They're not necessarily teams known for explosive plays, although I would argue DK Metcalf and George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and Christian McCaffrey himself, as well as Kyle Juszczyk, a guy who apparently still is the fullback relevant. What? Listen, I think the Niners just have too many weapons for the Seattle defense to really contain. And we already have seen Geno Smith say, "Oh God, getting chased down by just Aaron Donald. Rodgers, imagine those edges handling business with Bosa and Young on the other side. And by the way, a prominent defensive end potentially named Young for the 49ers. I felt like I was just a couple years ago back watching Bryant Young get inducted. Whole other question. Punchline's this. Too much defense, too much offense. I don't care where the game is, because even though Seattle is a great venue for noise and having that 12th man present, I still have the 49ers handling business right now. They too travel pretty well, by the way, Drew Willingham.
Yeah, and based on how the Seahawks played against the Rams in this past week, in a game that, the way the Seahawks started the year out and based on the hype from they had last year, I would have picked the Seahawks to win, and I did. And based on how they played last week and how things have been going for the past month or so, and with what the 49ers did last year, how they started this year, and how they've kind of bounced back after going 0-3 from that 5-0 start, and the acquisition of Chase Young, along with everything you said, I have to basically agree with you. It's very rare that you'll have a homer pick and I'll agree with you. But based on the things that you said to defend your homer pick, I have to give you the nod on this one, Kyle Nash, and agree with everything that you just said right there in your take.
I do notice you have the 5.5 point spread that the Niners are giving up. Take it. I think it's at least a touchdown victory. Yeah, there you go.
It's definitely going to be an interesting game to see if things pan out that way. And with that being said, we'll go ahead and move on to our next part of this segment.
Who's giving them the business?
Our next game that we have here for the featured attractions, the Buffalo Bills, who are 6-5, at the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 9-1, who have the 3.5 point spread over the Buffalo Bills, that being the Eagles. How can the Bills come together as a team over this Eagles team?
I mean, it starts with limiting mistakes. Josh Allen needs to be able to learn to live to fight another day and hope that the Eagles have a bit of a letdown after sneaking away in Arrowhead over the Chiefs. I feel like, and this is a point I've seen made, and a good one, like when the national media happens to be right, I'll give them credit. I've heard Nick Wright, documented Josh Allen and Buffalo Bill hater, make a great point that Josh Allen keeps trying to play that hero ball, to try to force the play, to be a gunslinger rather than a tactician or a game manager at quarterback. And this has created the problems. That's what leads to the turnovers, Drew Willingham. So it's one of these, especially with the Eagles defense, you got to learn to live to fight another day. You don't need to start to force plays early in the game. Just keep yourself in it against the defending NFC champions and keep it close. Make it sloppy like that. If you beat the Eagles, it probably will be a 21-17 game. Yeah, I think the Bills, when they're at their best, can be the best offense in their league. Unfortunately, their floor is awfully pretty damn low too. So, but I think that's the kick.
Definitely well said with that too. I don't disagree with that whatsoever. When it comes to the next question at hand, when will the Eagles put together a 60-minute ball game? As we again didn't see it last night because it took them till the very end of it, of the second half, to come together, as they weren't playing well in the first half, in my opinion. So again, with the question at hand, when will the Eagles put together a 60-minute ball game?
Golly, have we seen one since the Super Bowl, right? And I would argue the Super Bowl wasn't even one with the crucial mistake that Jalen Hurts made that led to the fumble for 6 by the Chiefs that ended up impacting the outcome of the game itself, right? And not to throw shade on Jalen Hurts because he's a good quarterback. When will they put together a full 60-minute drive? I'm not here to tell you it's this week with the most underrated defensive tackle core in the league in Buffalo, but yeah, listen, being sloppy and getting down early is the kind of thing that gets you in trouble. Because if you make Josh Allen feel comfortable, that's when you're in true trouble, because then he doesn't force the plays, as we talked about in the previous point, Drew Willingham.
Very, very well said with that one, too. And when it comes to the Eagles putting together a 60-minute ball game, I mean, there were some crucial mistakes that they made in last night's game that they luckily bounced back from, especially with one being Jalen Carter and his encroachment that he made to give them that 15 yards, set them up to potentially win the game, right there towards the end. I mean, there's other calls that you can definitely make in there to argue with that, but at least it's not as bad as like when Tebow was not showing up for 53 minutes, then would show up for the last 7 minutes of the game to lead the Broncos to a victory. Okay, so it's not quite as bad. They wouldn't be 9-1 if it was that bad, but they definitely need to do a better job of showing up within a 60-minute ball game. So for that, I have to say that's how I feel when it comes to that. Now, looking at things as a whole, what are your predictions for this game with the Buffalo Bills and the Philadelphia Eagles there, Kyle?
First of all, mad respect for you going with Tebow instead of young LeBron. I know you at least thought of it, but remember that this is a football show. You went with Tim Tebow, and that was I'm proud of you, Drew Willingham. It shows growth. But speaking of growth, the Eagles still have a lot of youth, to your point. That being said, it's going to be fascinating. If the Bills are going to win this game, they need to get out to at least a 2-touchdown lead and be up 2 touchdowns. I'd say mid-second quarter, halftime-ish, for this to really be something that the Bills can win. I have no reason to believe that happens. I have the Eagles.
Okay. With that being said, I'd agree with you on the Eagles. And based on how they pulled things out against the Kansas City Chiefs, I can't disagree with that whatsoever. And I have to go with the Eagles in this game right here on this day. And I can't disagree with anything that you just said in that part.
Who's giving them the business?
Now, right here, another team you know very well, a 7-3 Jacksonville Jaguars team against the Houston Texans, who are 6-4. The Jaguars have the 1.5-point spread. How can the Jaguars consistently play like they have been this past Sunday?
Respect that this game made the feature attractions, because this one is huge, and I don't think it's debatable, especially for the outcome of the AFC South and top 4 seeding in the playoffs down the line. Both will be impacted in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And who knows, maybe this game starts a downturn potentially for one of them to miss the playoffs. Listen, Joe Willingham, I remember the days back in late August where I was considered a crazy optimist. Somebody would have a PSA by Michael Jordan asking me to seek help when I said the Texans would win 7 games. Don't I? This is crazy.
Stop it. Get some help.
I'm trying. I have a lot of help that makes me look great on this show here with the Total Football Talk. But the Jags need to not suck. I mean, that's where it starts with, right? You need to not have the weaknesses in the interior line kill you. You need to not put Trevor Lawrence in a position to turn the ball over. You need to actually score dang touchdowns and points in general in the red zone. That's where it all starts. This defense needs to not have mental tics that had Tank Dell beat them over the top twice at Everbank Stadium. Part of the reason they have a losing home record. Remember, I said home record, not record including London, right? I mean in Duval County itself, right? Because that London win, one of the London wins, I think it was the Falcons, was considered a home game. It ain't home. Stop it. But I think it's just got to take consistent play, and it's going to be up in their minds because the Texans are feeling pretty dang confident right now, and it's going to be key to remember for Doug Peterson and his coaches to remember that other teams watch film too. You need to start making adjustments, especially with a team that's familiar with you like a divisional rival.
Definitely well said with that too. When I look at this game right here, and especially the question at bay with the Jaguars' consistent play that they did this past Sunday, the way that they showed up, getting that 20-point victory, they need Trevor Lawrence as well as Calvin Ridley to be clicking on all cylinders, especially like they did this past weekend. That's going to be their one way that they can definitely get the edge over the Texans. And with that being said, can the Texans stop playing up or down to their competition each week?
Oh, absolutely. I don't feel like that's what's happening. I know last week was a bit of an anomaly, where they threw the interceptions to the Cardinals. But remember, the Cardinals also beat the Cowboys back when we were alleging that they were Super Bowl contenders too. By the way, Lions more of a Super Bowl contender than the Dallas Cowboys, in my opinion. Hashtag I said it. I even said that in my predictions on the Student the Game podcast back in August and September. Bing! But No, I think the answer to this is clearly yes. CJ Stroud has lifted. You got to remember all the injuries that the Texans have had, and yet CJ Stroud has not only lifted them to their opponents, but to a high level of play. I mean, beating the Cincinnati Bengals with Joey Burr still intact should tell you everything you need to know about what this team is capable of. And I'll admit they don't have a lot of blowouts on their docket, but I'm not here to tell you that this is a team that will do that. By the way, not for nothing, the toughest part of the schedule is in the rear view for the Texans. You'll see more blowouts as the season goes on. That I can have you take to the bank.
Definitely. When it comes to that right there, Kyle Nash, when it comes to the Jaguars and the Texans and where we've thrown at and the Texans playing up or down, you definitely threw some things out there that I couldn't have even thrown out there. So I appreciate that one. Now, looking at the game predictions for this, what do you think? Do you think that Jacksonville keeps things rolling and gets to 8-3 after this, or will the Texans surprise some people and get to their 7th win in this game?
Yeah. By the way, the true advice here: do not bet this game, for the love of Pete. Yeah, there's so many things about this game that could go either way. In the previous game I mentioned at Everbank isn't an indicator, in my opinion, of what's going to move forward. By the way, that game, that blowout there in Everbank over the Jags by the Texans, you got to remember, featured a punt return for a touchdown by a fullback. There's 7 points I wouldn't expect to happen a second time. Tank Dell beating cats over the top on 2 just obvious mental breakdown plays by the Jags. No disrespect to Tank Dell, but like if you break down the film, you could see that Darius Williams was not in position to chase downfield, and that completely set up both touchdowns. I think were on a mental error there. I think it was Williams on both. I'd have to check. I'd have to look at the previous episode of the Duval dive. That was only week 3 after all, so we'll talk about that later. Bing! But I'm stalling to basically tell you I think the Jags do even it up, because when they need the game bad is when they seem to be playing their best under Doug Peterson.
I want to say, and what's up, Justin and PSF app? Just saw the comment over there when it came to this right here. When it comes to this topic, the Jaguars and Texans, I know you want to say that the Jaguars are going to win, but Kyle, I think we're going to see something different in Houston. I think CJ Stroud isn't going to turn the ball over 3 times like he did in this past game.
Right.
I think he's going to learn a little bit from that. And I think the Jaguars are going to get exposed. And with that being said, I can only play one transition to make this come to fruition, and that is followed by "Hello World."
Acknowledge me.
Because when it comes to this situation right here, the Jaguars are not as good as that 20-point spread that they put up this past weekend. They're going to drink too much of the Kool-Aid, and they are going to get exposed by D'Amico Ryans in this game. And that's just how I feel with the way things are going to pan out.
I ain't mad at it. No, that's a fine take too. Both of them. See, that's why I said don't bet this game. There's really no clear direction of what to get out of this. And you know, I mean, credit to the Texans again. D'Amico Ryans, Coach of the Year candidate. CJ Stroud, obvious Offensive Rookie of the Year.
And you know, Justin said it best. I can't wait for this matchup: Stroud versus T-Law. Old strong T-Law right there. What do you think about that one there, Kyle?
I mean, at the end of the day, the one I'm looking forward to is Josh Allen and Will Anderson Jr., right? Like the Willie Anderson, like what he's done at the defensive end spot is being overlooked because simply CJ Stroud's doing so amazing. That's a defensive rookie candidate of the year candidate as well. We need to have that conversation in that particular instance, my friend. Listen, the first round of the 2023 draft alone makes the Houston Texans the front runners in hindsight as winners of that draft. So Josh Allen, by the way, he's pretty good at football as well. Been in the top 3 in sacks in the NFL for some time and has been a force to make this Jags defense, which at times throughout the year has led the league in turnovers. The defenses are going to have their impact on the game as well. I think the Jags have a little bit better advantage on that because they don't have as many injuries as the Texans do in their secondary, but Yeah, man. There's a lot going there to back the Texans, man. Listen, I think this is going to be the most competitive football game on the docket that we see currently here, and that's why it's part of the featured attractions.
Well played, put into that. And with that being said, we'll take a quick commercial break. When we come on back, we will get to the chopping block.
Next, the chopping block and snowflake of the week. This is Total Football Talk. Join Ryan McCarthy.
I became a Jets fan because Kermit the Frog was my favorite Muppet because he was green, and the Jets wore green. That's how I became a Jets fan.
And Dustin Henry.
ESPN is cashing all in on let's pay a few personalities and we'll just kind of fill in the gaps.
As they walk you through all of the world of sports from their perspective.
The Albany Empire, it's a literal circus.
No credentials required. Where, Ryan, say the tag.
Where you don't need a press pass to talk sports.
Every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. On YouTube and where you can find all podcasts. This is a BS3 Network presentation.
I want to do a TED Talk, but I don't have anything to talk about yet. I'm getting there.
Life is for the living. We're not here that long.
You can learn anything you want to learn without any money spent.
What do I really enjoy? What do I really want out of life?
I am your host, WIZE.
Are you in a life holding pattern? Well, this is for you. Welcome to the Stuck in My Mind podcast. Live every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central. Football, and more football, you say? Well, tune in to Total Football Talk. Join your hosts, Drew Willingham.
You were playing like a dumpster Pelican quarterback.
And Cole Johnson.
It sets up a possible play action. Did you hear that, Dak Prescott?
As they take you through all the paces, both on the field and in the boardroom, of Total Football Talk. Every Tuesday at
9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central.
Exclusively on the Sertoba Media and the Comey Media Incorporated YouTube channel.
Welcome back to Total Football Talk. As we are here, we have been dealing with some fire comments in the Pro Sports Fans chat over there on the PSF app. For those of you watching here on YouTube and our other streaming platforms, make sure you download that app entitled PSF. And we have some comments that are still flowing over here as we have some laughing emojis talking about the Eagles, and they definitely could have went either way. It really could have been when it comes to the way things panned out there for that Monday night football game. Now, going through the slate here, we have to take things up to the chopping block now, as there are some things that we have got to chop into place there, Kyle Nash, when it comes to this. Let's go ahead and get that transition rolling. And here with the chopping block, Kyle Nash. Najee Harris tired of the Steelers' poor performances in 2023 after the loss to the Browns. When will it be time to say goodbye to the Steelers' offensive coordinator, Matt Canada? Except we had breaking news earlier, and we already announced it. So for that, we're going to skip over that one. It's early in the morning. I read the question.
I said we can report like what at what time. Apparently, it was about 8:50 a.m. this morning.
It was, and it was right before we got on here and went live. And I guess the Folgers in my cup definitely hasn't kicked into overdrive yet, as I shouldn't have even read that question. Everybody makes a mistake per day. Nobody's perfect, and everybody gets one. There's my one. So right here,
Willingham, even though you say your Folgers wasn't full enough, you're still the best part of waking up, whether Folgers is in my cup or not.
Boom! Yeah! That's what I'm talking about. You just got me all sorts of hype this morning. Kyle Nash. We'll see how things will be panning out here for this show. Now, as we move to our next topic here in the chopping block, The Chargers coach Brandon Staley gets heated in post-game exchange after loss to the Packers. How long does Brandon Staley have before the Chargers show him the door?
I mean, listen, what's the saying? A kicked dog barks louder. Listen, buddy, your offensive coordinator is officially on pace to score more points this year than last year. You're a defensive guy, and let's just say fans don't love that Jordan beat you. Yes. Of course, I'm referring to the Packers loss this past weekend, and that's not the only head-scratching situation where the defense has struggled. Listen, if you lose to Patrick Mahomes II, that's one thing, but the way you've struggled against other opponents that are, let's just say, more than winnable games this past week among them, this is why you're questioned, just as you were last year. Frankly, I thought the wrong coach got fired in Los Angeles last year, and let's just say there's not very much power in what the Chargers are currently doing with Staley at the helm. He's not a guy that I've appreciated as a coach overall in the past couple seasons. When will he win? Let's just put it this way. There is, of Black Friday after Thanksgiving, there is a Black Monday, the Monday after the final Sunday of the season. And I believe at that point, he will be a fat kid in dodgeball, which is to say he will be out.
Yes, very well played with my play on the fat kids in dodgeball. I very much approve of that message there, Kyle Nash. Now, when it comes to our next one, no hot water for the showers at FedEx Field after the Commanders lost to the Giants. Should the Commanders more aggressively search for a new place to play? Very similar to the Oakland A's as they have moved out of their historic town in baseball. Should they make that move there in football?
Oh, God, heavens no. Okay, first of all, let's pump the brakes a little bit. First of all, unconfirmed sources have told me that the reason why there was no hot water in the showers there, Drew Willingham, is because it's currently being moved over to heat the seat that's under Ron Rivera, so Eric Bieniemy can take over as head coach. So I think that might be part of the problem there. Listen, ownership just took over. These are the kind of things that might happen or come up. And there's just so many things that are changing in the day-to-day operation. I love Magic Johnson getting involved on Twitter, talking about how embarrassed he is for his product to be what it is. I don't think they'll leave the general area. Maybe there'll be some scuttlebutt to, I don't know about build another venue, maybe. I don't know. That's more your part of the world. I'll let you comment on that part, Drew Willingham, as you are an actual Commander fan. But yeah, I mean, for me, that's obviously embarrassing, especially now that Oakland has officially lost another team recently. You know more about that than I do with baseball and all that, but I find it interesting that Vegas has now twice claimed victims from Oakland as well there, Drew Willingham. And I think I'm not going to say no, but I am going to say that it would be good for the fans if they could. It's just those things take time and machinations to make happen.
Definitely well played on that. I will say, at least for the Commanders situation, Dan Snyder purchased that property in Dumfries, a couple of years back. The only thing about that is that has pretty much been very quiet in the talks ever since that happened. Like, I got to look it back up, and I don't recall at this current moment. I'm not sure if that land was included with the sale of the team. I'm pretty sure that it was. You would think that it would, because, I mean, what other reason would Dan Snyder hold on to that property for if he's not the owner of the team anymore? It's not like he built a mega mall or something there. I don't know. But yeah, so, when I put all of that in Miami Got Jokes, yo, what up in there in the Pro Sports Fans app, when it comes to this topic right here, no hot water in the showers, it's definitely doesn't look good on the ownership because, in my opinion, just because a new owner takes over a team doesn't mean the maintenance crew stops working. So when it comes to cold water in the showers, I feel like this is something that they should have figured out before the game ended, and they should have known. And that some point throughout this week leading up to it, because they practice around the same facility. I don't think that it was the first time in the entirety of the whole week that a shower was taken in the locker room there. So it could be something a little bit more up to it. And yes, we've been dealing with some cold weather, some shifts as we are now moving from fall to winter. Okay. But going from that and going with dealing with the temperatures, the stadium was built in the mid 90s. So I don't feel like the structure, even though we've been dealing with some poopy water and some stuff from the fans over at FedEx, I don't think that when it comes to the pipes and the hot water heaters and stuff, that they just automatically just go bad. I think we could have some type of conspiracy on our hands when it comes to this. Maybe somebody just pressed the knob a little bit to the other side and took the hot water out of the equation.
Well, and for all the stuff we've uncovered in the Snyder regime going wrong, that's kind of, I think, what I was alluding to as well, is there could have been something that was aging, a winter is coming sort of problem that may not have been handed off appropriately, and now something's gone wrong. It's stuff like that goes wrong in transition. Listen, Drew, you do IT just like I do, and if problems are left unchecked, if maintenance is left undone, bad things happen. And I think this was something, if I were to guess and speculate, which I obviously am, that's kind of, I think, falls under this category. And like I said, too, the reallocation to Ron Rivera's hot seat is also certainly a factor to the logistics and infrastructure of the stadium in question.
Very much so. Very, very much so. I definitely agree with that. And we'll see how things pan out when it comes to this team going forward. But now we got one more thing we got to take it to, and it's something that I know that you were excited to get to, and that is the Snowflake of the Week.
Total football talk.
I love the Snowflake of the Week. Now, when it comes to this right here, out of all the teams we talked about earlier, just like when we picked the MVP of the week, who would be, out of all the teams, your worst player, your worst contributor to a team in a loss, or even in a win? If you think that somebody played so bad in a win, they still deserve to be a Snowflake of the Week. Out of all the teams that played, the 28 teams that played this past weekend, who is your Snowflake of the Week there, Kyle Nash?
Listen, I'm not going to go based on anything that happened on the field this week. For my money, it's defensive end / edge rusher for the Titans, former Jaguar, Arden Key, who had very public comments implying that Trevor Lawrence is just a single read quarterback. What had happened was, and in post game, Trevor Lawrence was asked about this and how Richard Sherman and Nick Bosa and including Arden Key, a former teammate, said this, have been saying this about one Trevor Lawrence, the alleged prince that is promised. Not my words, Nick writes, but you get it. The punchline's this. His response was, I'm hurt that Arden would say that. And then he used a quote that you could see, by the way, on the 3-Point Conversion YouTube channel from that press conference. Bing! But he said, if you want to change the narrative, change the narrative. Trevor Lawrence did exactly that a week removed for what he said it was also his worst playoff performance of his career. So with that, Arden Key is getting a little frigid. You're the Snowflake of the Week here from me.
And we actually have a comment in the PSF app that was actually taking it to where I was going to take it to. And I know earlier we had talked about how the New York Jets offensive line and how bad it is. And basically how it would basically bring out the worst in the quarterback. Okay. And if you're already a bad quarterback, you're going to look even worse based on this New York Jets offensive line. And with that being said, my Snowflake of the Week goes to Zach Wilson. 7 of 15, 81 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Okay, there were more players out there that threw more interceptions and had more turnovers. But to have that type of production in a 4-quarter game, to basically, at the end of it, already be relegated to the third-string quarterback. We already had Thomas Morstead, the punter, throwing a pass in this game. He was 1 of 1 for 18 yards, and that's still better than what Zach Wilson threw for in this game, okay? Tim Boyle, the third string quarterback, comes out there. One that it took you a minute to think of the name earlier or whatnot. But when it comes to the third string there, 7 of 14, 33 yards and an interception. Even though he had an interception, he still had more yards per attempt than what Zach Wilson had in his passes. So looking at it right here, 7 of 15, 81 yards is absolutely putting you on the status of this. That being Dumpster Pelican status. Look at the second one to the right there. That one would be Zach Wilson right beside that Food Lion bag underneath that can of tuna. That is who Zach Wilson is when it comes to the Dumpster Pelican status in that transition right there. And that is who we have as our snowflakes of the week. With that being said, we'll go ahead and take this into a commercial break before we have the 2-minute drill.
The 2-minute drill is next. This is Total Football Talk. Hey, Eagles fan. Join my man Cool McCain and a host of others as they break down every single game, every single week in an objective manner, and also from a fan's perspective as well. Remember, this cast feels just like you. Nobody likes you. And you don't care. Fly, Eagles, fly. Eagles Elite Podcast. Every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and other podcast outlets. Oh, yes. The tradition, the pageantry, the spectacle, the history, the slut. Wait. I gotta rep my brother's stuff right. All my DMV soldiers, stand up! And welcome to the Commander's Gridiron Report. You want your commanders to be repped right? Well, D. Willie is your man. Commander's Gridiron Report. Every Monday at 3:05 p.m. Eastern, 2:05 p.m. Central. Exclusively on the Sertoba Media YouTube channel. Music by J. Cool. Join the transporter to Hades.
Your butt and gut becomes one.
Join the reformer of hooker whores.
This is my daughter, Placenta Booty Johnson.
Join the bronze god.
Whenever you are in distress, take off your baseball cap and throw it in the air.
Join your very own superhero of broadcasting, Chris Bass.
So whatever color crayon they get, they palm it and do 2 circles, and that translates to, I can be the black people.
As she takes you through the week's paces in Baseline. Live every Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central, Pacific Time Zone people, just stay asleep when this is on live and just catch the recording. Oh, I'm sorry. Exclusively on the Chris Bass YouTube channel.
Welcome back to Total Football Talk. That is our final commercial break of the episode. And with that being said, we have to take this into the 2-minute drill. All right, Kyle, the part in the show where we go through and we have our quick picks of the week 12 is we have all 12. Well, not all 32 teams playing in this week's games, starting with Thanksgiving. And with Thanksgiving, Green Bay Packers 4-6 against Detroit Lions 8-2 Thursday, 12:30 p.m. The Lions are the 7.5-point favorite. Who do you have in this game?
I mean, listen, at the end of the day, if you're asking me to pick against Man Campbell, I am not that brave a soul when it comes to that prospect, for lack of a better way to put it. But then again, it is whatever. I don't love Jordan and what he's doing. Man Campbell and company will make for a great Turkey Day afternoon. Give me the Lions.
I will agree with that. I'm picking the Man Camp on the Lions, and they will be 9-2 after this matchup.
Who's giving them the business?
The Washington Commanders, 4-7, travel to Dallas, take on the 7-3 Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving as well, 4:30 p.m. The Cowboys are the 10-point favorites, 10-point spread here. Who do you have here, Kyle?
With that clip with ref microphone hype, I have to steal another one that's recently occurred. Drew Willingham, I'm talking to America here, okay? I'm not a Commanders fan by any stretch of the imagination. I will be cheering for them to make the Cowboys look silly. I just don't think it'll happen. Sam Howell will add another L to his legacy. I have the Cowboys in Jerry World in the afternoon on T-Day handling business.
Kyle Nash, I only have one thing to say to you.
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell no, to the no.
We got some comments in the PSF app as well, and I'm sorry. And I'm sorry to you too. But the Commanders are winning this matchup right here. And yes, I do have a half sleeve tattoo with the old logo. However, that was grandfathered in before the changes that came. Okay. However, back to why they will beat them real quick. Because Sam Howell will learn from his 3 interceptions in this past game, and Dak Prescott will get exposed again. And this is the first of 2 matchups, and every single NFC East matchup is close. And I see you giving fire emojis over there, Kyle Nash. Oh, I see you. But you will see this when it comes to...
You can't handle the truth!
This Thursday... The Reds, well, I almost said it. The Commanders will...
Let's get ready to rumble!
You're on my show here saying that the Cowboys are going to show up like this.
Ain't nobody calling me, texting me, paging me, asking me, are you still involved? Calling me, texting me, paging me, asking me, am I still involved? Y'all, you.
So after that, are they still going to be Whedon boys, or will we be playing this clip?
Now, that is absurd.
I mean, first of all, you open up going full Charlie Sheen with your winning. I mean, what do I even do with that? I listen. I love it. As I said, I will be cheering for your Red Tails. Sorry, Commanders, but I'm just not strong enough for Willingham.
We'll just say since Prince can be formerly known as the artist, okay, or back when he was alive, we can say they are formerly known as the REDSKINS, and that's how I feel when it comes to this situation right here and how things will pan out this Thursday. I have the Commanders. Kyle has the Cowboys. We'll see how things pan out.
Who's giving them the business?
Next, we have the Miami Dolphins, who are 7-3 against the lowly New York Jets, who are 4-6. They play Friday at 3:00. When it comes to this game, the Dolphins 6.5 point spread on this Black Friday game. Who do you have in this matchup? Do you think the Dolphins get it done?
First of all, I'm gonna leave with this: Black Friday NFL games are stupid. That is college ground. Stop it. Anyways, now that I got that off my chest, Drew Willingham. Listen. If the Dolphins lose this game, humiliation be thy name. If Zach Wilson can outperform your offense, humiliation be thy name. I'm not saying they need to put up another 70 points. This is a good defense, and they'll be mighty ticked after blowing the game that they did against the Bills. This is a big deal in the division, by the way, as it's the AFC East. But at day's end, I have Mike McDaniel. Remember, because Josh McDaniels, the S is for stinks, right? Mike McDaniel handling business here, coming up with an answer to the problem that is the Jets defense.
Definitely a great pick there, and I have to go with the Dolphins as well. The Jets defense definitely is a tough one to match up against, but the offense is definitely going to be what soils all over a great thing. And that's just how I feel when it comes to this matchup here. Tyreek Hill is going to light it up again, and I feel like the 6.5-point spread may be a little bit too low. I think the Dolphins are going to take this pretty decisively, and the Jets are not going to have any chance in this game. I could be wrong. They could win. They could be 5-6 after this and get one step closer to Aaron Rodgers coming back this year. But I feel like that would be a bad call. You've already got your third-string quarterback announced to be the quarterback for the game. I just don't see any hope in the Jets getting the victory in this game. I have to give it to the Dolphins right here.
Who's giving them the business?
Now, next we have the New Orleans Saints, who are 5-5, taking on the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta. The Falcons being the 1.5-point spread picks right here. Sunday at 1 o'clock for our start of our Sunday 1 o'clock games. Who do you have here?
As tempting as it is at times for people to pick Atlanta, you have to remember why I call them the fraud cons. At the end of the day, New Orleans defense is going to eat just like the Jacksonville Jaguar defense did in London. I use that to say I thought Taylor Heineke would be an improvement over Sam Darnold. I don't really think we've seen that, and I don't necessarily think that it's Heineke's fault either. I think that's another coaching candidate that's about to get changed out as well. I have the Saints on the road.
Yeah, and hopefully Arthur Smith shaves that god-awful mustache too, because that's not working out for him either, and it's definitely giving him some bad luck. But for that being said, I want Taylor Heineke to succeed. I like the kid when he was in Washington. He just needed, to get a little bit more work in, to get a little bit better to where things would work out for him and get things to where he could actually be successful. And Atlanta just doesn't have as good of a team around them as Washington does. And that's why Sam Howell, along with EB coming in this offseason, have definitely been a spark to Sam Howell and helped him out. Even though Sam Howell did great in that Week 18 matchup last year against the Cowboys, in my opinion, which set him up for the success. The addition of Eric Bieniemy definitely has helped him. I'll give you that, Kyle Nash. But the words you uttered not too long ago about Eric Bieniemy being the only reason Sam Howell's having success, which we'll get to that here in a minute.
Maybe.
But when it comes to that, I disagree. However, I feel like if Taylor Heineke would have stayed in Washington, he would have better success than what he's having in Atlanta if he was the quarterback for the Commanders than he would be for the Falcons. The Falcons still, with what's been going on this year, are very lucky to be at 4-6. But I think they're going to move to 4-7 after this game. And we're going to see the New Orleans Saints take the victory here.
But I thought they were supposed to win the South. Anyway.
Who's giving them the business?
Next up, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are 6-4, taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, who are 5-5 this Sunday. The Bengals are the 1.5-point spread here, but with that being said, you don't have Joe Burrow with the hand. He's now out for the rest of the season. So do you agree with the 1.5-point spread? Do you think the Bengals take this game, or do you think that the Kenny Pickett-led Steelers can get the victory here?
Listen, one might claim that I'm going to pick it for Kenny. No, here's the thing. I like Trey Hendrickson and that defense. The one thing that I might like better than Trey Hendrickson and that defense in this game is TJ freaking Watt against a backup quarterback and that defense. This Mika Fitzpatrick guy is pretty good at football as well. I'm going to throw that out there. There will be turnovers. There will be problems. There will not be Bengals success. I have the Steelers. I picked them to win 10 games back in, I believe it was August. Bing! So I am not going to shy away from that now. The Steelers bounce back after the loss to the Browns.
And you know what? I think I'll agree with that too. The Steelers end this weekend with a 7-4 record. The Bengals would drop out of 500. And what looks like a great comeback from the way that the Bengals started this season, being banged up, getting that bye week, and starting the resurgence. Now for Joe Burrow to get knocked out for the rest of the season is really sad to see that. But, he did a lot of great things coming back after that bye week and coming back from the injuries that he sustained before the season started. Have to give it to him for his toughness. And he kept his gear on when he got hurt this past weekend, like he wanted to come back in.
Right.
Just unfortunately wasn't medically cleared. But with that being said, Kenny Pickett's going to have like 104 yards and still get the victory in this game when it comes to passing yards, because that's what it seems like he's throwing on a regular basis, between 104 and 124 yards a game. So with that being said, the team that needs to find a new quarterback, in my opinion, this offseason, will get the victory.
Who's giving them the business?
Now, this next matchup, we got a team that traded away their first-round pick for 2024, and it looks like the Bears may just have 2 picks, not only in the top 10, maybe in the top 5, but definitely the number 1 overall pick. It's not even theirs, okay? So, with that being said, the team that's giving it to them is the away team in this next contest, as the Carolina Panthers, who are 1-9, traveled to Tennessee to take on the 3-7 Titans. The Titans have the 4-point spread on this one for this 1 o'clock game. How do you feel about this, Kyle? Do you feel like the Titans win, or do we see a Carolina Panthers upset?
The Titans found a team that they can actually beat. No, they got a couple wins with Will Levis. I get it, but I don't believe in him yet. But I believe less in the Bears offense. Is this really a struggle for me to pick the Titans? Yeah, I got the Titans.
Okay. I think the only way that the Titans will win this game is if Will Levis does in the first game that he played this year, where he throws 4 touchdowns and needs Bryce Young to throw 4 interceptions. I'm picking the Carolina Panthers to get their 2nd win of the year. They'll still be the worst team in the league, having 2 wins, but I feel like they're going to win against the Titans. It's going to bring Vrabel 1 step closer to getting out of Tennessee. It's going to expose the quarterback on the other end as well. And it's time for Bryce Young to actually have a decent game this year. I'm going to pick an upset here, and I'm going to go with the Carolina Panthers.
Who's giving them the business?
Our next game that we have on the list here is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, led by Bunker Stayfield at 4-6, against the Indianapolis Colts, who are surprisingly 5-5 with everything that's transpired over the past few seasons and how things have shaped up this year. For this 1 o'clock contest, the Colts have the 1.5-point spread right here. Who do you think is going to get this matchup right here and win this contest?
The 2nd best quarterback in the NFC South versus the 3rd best quarterback in the AFC South. A fascinating matchup as Uncle Rico gets involved. This is a sneaky, scary game, but at the end of the day, it's the Bucs defense, I think, that will make the difference. As much as I like DeForest Buckner for the Colts, and I like that they're in Lucas Oil Stadium if I'm a Colts fan, obviously, at the end of the day, I see the Bucs continuing to make their campaign to try to stay alive in the NFC South.
I like that, Kyle Nash. And, unfortunately, this past weekend, we had the Colts on bye week. So, old Uncle Rico got the rest. And with that being said, I think with everything you just said, along with the defensive play, I feel like the Colts may be a little bit too rusty. Bunker's going to be a little bit upset with how he played in this past weekend. And the Buccaneers get 1 step closer to being 500 as they win this game and move up to 5-6. So with that being said, I have the Buccaneers here as well.
Who's giving them the business?
Our next game that we have here, the Mac and Cheese-led New England Patriots, who are 2-8, take on the New York Giants, who are 3-8. Bill Belichick travels to New York to take on the team he used to be a coordinator for and won a couple of Super Bowls with back in the day. 3-point spread goes to the Patriots in this one for this 1 o'clock game. Do you agree with that? Or based on how the Giants beat the Commanders this past weekend, do you think that momentum helps them take a victory over the Patriots?
The Patriots are playing. The Giants are playing. Who's going to lose? The loser in this game is America. Oh, my God, what a trashy thing this is going to turn out to be. Take the damn under at all costs. I don't know. Since the alleged 2022 Coach of the Year is proving, in fact, that he was not all along. Hashtag I said it. The student of the game Coach of the Year was Doug Peterson for reasons that are now made obvious. I'm going to I'll give it to Belichick on general principle, I suppose. All it would take is an incorrect text message to give the game to the Giants just the same. See what I did there, Drew Willingham? There's a deep schmack in that one. No, but yeah, I'll take the Patriots. Why not?
I think this game is going to be so that it not only ends that way, but it's going to end in a tie.
Who's giving them the business?
I ain't mad at you, but
when it comes to our next game, The Cleveland Browns, 7-3, travel to Denver to take on the 4-5 Denver Broncos. Sunday, 4:05. The Broncos have the 1.5-point spread here. Who do you have in this one there, sir?
Drew Willingham, this game is sneaky important, right? If you in any way believe in the Denver Broncos' ability to ascend back into playoff conversation, this game, I'm not going to say it's a must win, but it's pretty bleeding important. The Browns at 7-3 are currently in the 5 spot in the AFC standings too, which, by the way, no one had that on their bingo card outside of the state of Ohio. I'm forced to take the Browns here simply because their defense is that epic, and I find that Russell Carrington Wilson is going to struggle more than the Browns will.
Based on the defensive play by the Browns, I would have to be inclined to go with you on this one. However, those were this past weekend and how they've been since they started in the first month of the season. It's not on Russell Carrington Wilson. It's not RC Dubs that's really turning this thing around. I feel like it's Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is literally just, out there on cruise control, being the best Trent Dilfer he can. Now, not being the best Trent Dilfer he can to where they're going to win a Super Bowl this year, but at least not causing as many mistakes as he did in previous seasons, especially last year, which was as bad. But I feel like the Broncos have a good chance of upsetting the Browns because there's only but so far a defense, even as good as the Browns, will take you. DTR, if he goes into this game and has no touchdowns and throws an interception like he did in this last game, or has more than one interception and doesn't get better with his consistent play, I mean, he had out of 40 passes or whatnot last week, he only completed 24 of them. So looking at how he did in this past game, he was 24 of 43, 165 yards and interception. That's not going to get the job done against an offensive guru like Sean Payton. So when I think about it like that, I just don't think that it's going to happen that way. I think we're going to have an upset this week, and I'll give you a chance to rebuke on that one.
No, listen, I think this game's close enough to that's just as good a take as what I threw out. I mean, the reason why my breakdown was so short is I'm really kind of confused on how this game's going to turn out. I don't really know where to go with it. But, as I cite, I need to see somebody overcome the Browns defense before I believe that they can do it. And some good teams have been supplanted by Cleveland's defense. Heck, didn't they just get Lamar Demetrius Jackson 2 weeks ago? Just saying.
They did. They did.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
Now, looking at our next contest, the LA Rams, who are 4-6, travel to Arizona to take on the 2-9 Arizona Cardinals. Surprisingly, the Cardinals are the 1.5-point favorites in this Sunday 4:05 matchup. Do you agree with that? Do you think the Cardinals will take this game over the LA Rams?
This is going to be a competitive game, but if you're asking me to believe in Kyler Murray over John Matthew Stafford, that's not going to happen. I have the Rams. Aaron Charles Donald will get in Kyler Murray's head. He'll make some mistakes. And Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp will capitalize. You'll see at least a touchdown from either, if not both. I got the Rams in this one there, Drew Willingham.
Okay. Based on how things happened this past weekend, I would have to agree with you and say that I will go with the Rams as well.
Who's giving them the business?
Moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs, who are now 7-2. Well, 7-3 after last night's game. At the Las Vegas Raiders, who are 5-6. Chiefs are the 9.5-point favorites for this 4:25 contest on Sunday. Do you think that the Chiefs win this game right here?
I mean, who doesn't? You're asking me to bet against Patrick Lavon Mahomes II against a sorry team. No offense to Antonio Pierce, who's done a good job taking over in the interim for Josh McDaniels. The S is for stinks. I'm using that joke as much as I can. It goes away after this season, Drew Willingham. Anyways, but yeah, no. Patrick Lavon Mahomes II, Travis Michael Kelce, lock it up.
Last night, and where was it at, Kyle Nash? It was at home.
Yeah.
It was at home. Now, they're on the road this time, going to Vegas. Party City. Sin City. Looking here. Going into this game, you got AP who's turning things around. Their game that they lost past weekend was a close one. If the Chiefs come into Vegas, AP as a head coach. Now, I could be wrong, but the art of this is you pick one way and sometimes I have to pick another. Or we agree, or we choose to agree to disagree, or we just pick a tie like I did earlier in that one game. So when it comes to this, I had to, for the sake of debate, and I haven't said that in a while, so I had to say it today. With it being for the sake of debate, I had to go with that one for my man Kyle Nash.
Who's giving them the business?
My bad. What were you saying?
No, I thought you just wanted to hear the alarm.
No, that's why I gave a legitimate take afterwards. I feel like there's a good chance we could see this potentially happen. I mean, of course, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. We're used to seeing them do what they've been doing over the past, half a decade now since they've been on the come up, and especially since Patrick Mahomes, as you like to throw their middle names out there, coming there, the second junior. But when he comes in there and he does what he does, I mean, we're spoiled in saying that they're doing the things that they're doing, and we expect them to bounce back. This week. And of course, Dolph 17 says in PSF, the Chiefs bounce back, but will be much closer than they think.
That's
not than we may think. Yeah, that's not a bad take at all. So yeah, it's definitely not a bad take. And right here, we'll have to see how things pan out. But again, we can't agree on everything, so that's why I went that way. Our next game here, Baltimore Ravens are 8-3, taking on the Los Angeles Chargers in LA. The Ravens 8-3, the Chargers 5-5. Sunday, 8:20 p.m. Eastern time, and the Ravens are the 4-point favorites. Who do you think are going to take this game? Will it be the said Ravens or will it be the Chargers there, Kyle Nash?
Let me see. I have coached Brandon Staley. I have coached John Harbaugh, and their quarterback also happens to be better. I mean, this one kind of writes itself, right? I have the Ravens all day. I would give you more analysis, but it's pretty stone cold facts from that point here. And that's the bottom line.
Absolutely. And with that, I'll give you a...
What?
That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, based on the iffy coaching going on over there in LA and the mediocre play for the Chargers, it would be foolish for me to pick the Chargers in this game. I have to go with the Ravens, and that's my pick for who I have.
Who's giving them the business?
Hey, by the way, the chat agrees with you on the PSF app that the Ravens, because Staley will mess it up at some point. Just wait for it.
Yes, absolutely, Dolph. And he says the Dolphins were averaging 43 points a game at home to kind of help with my take. The Ravens held them to 20 as Pierce has them buying in. So it doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to get the win, but the game's going to be a lot closer than what people may think when you look at how the team was the first half of the season under Josh McDummy.
The S is for stinks.
Who's giving them the business?
In our last game of the week to talk about in the 2-minute drill, the Chicago Bears at 3-8 take on the Minnesota Vikings, who are 5-4. The Vikings are the 3.5-point favorite on this Monday 8:15 kickoff edition game. For the last pick of the show there, Kyle Nash, who do you have?
I got Josh Dobbs is gonna turn the knobs and make the win happen for the Vikings at the end of the day. I know they don't have Justin Jefferson, but their new young man at receiver is handling business. And I like what they're doing offensively. Their defense may not be great, but you don't have to be too great to stop the Chicago Bears. I have the Vikings.
And people for the next time on this show.
Let me talk to you.
When it comes to this, I feel like the Bears are going to be aiming towards having not one, but 2 picks within the top 5 in this next draft, as if they lose this game, they will be one step closer to having that accomplishment being attainable. And with that being said, I have to give this game to the other team, that being the Minnesota Vikings, who will go to having a 6-4 record. And just like Dolph says, the Bears lost a game that they should have won. Another team with bad coaching and another team that may not be as bad as the New York Giants with the amount of coaches they're paying to stay home right now, but they have had a lot of different head coaches in the past 10 years, in the past 20 years since the turn of the century. Well, no, have to look at Lovie Smith being there for quite some time. So, yeah, they did have him. But, since then, between Mark Trestman and the others, it hasn't turned out all that well over there in Chicagoland.
I mean, Matt Nagy was a Coach of the Year winner when he got to the playoffs with Mitchell Trubisky, but everybody seems to forget about that in Chicagoland.
Yeah, but then eventually.
How's that going for him?
Not very well. And for that, we have to acknowledge Kyle.
Acknowledge me.
So for that, we've gone through the 2-minute drill. It's now time to go to the post game.
Total football talk.
As long as it's one. Oh, that's great. I love it. I hope it actually is recording. Listening to it.
Here with the post game, basically, we've gone through everything throughout the show. Kyle, this is your time, for your final thoughts. Also, let them know where they can find you. Those who are privy to you on Sartoba Media definitely know where to find you based on, with Student of the Game, the Duval Dot podcast every week. But you're also streaming on Comey Media and PSF. Let them know here in the final thoughts where they can find you there, my man.
First of all, with that set up, bing! Also, you can find my work with the Jaguar Report of SI.com, or excuse me, of Fam Nation at SI. And then also you can check out my work with the 3-point conversion, also covering the Jacksonville Jaguars, specifically on their YouTube channel, where you'll see some of my locker room interviews and post-game chatter as well. Then remember, I also cover college for the UCF Knights football and basketball there with the Black and Gold banneret. So check out all of the things, all of the above. Bing! That's the whole thing. By the way, hey there, Mick, how you doing there in the YouTube comments? But I would be remiss to not remind you on Twitter at the SOTG, on Instagram and Threads as the same, the SOTG, on Facebook as the Student of the Game. And with all that in mind, friends, the last take I got to give is your boy, Drew Willingham, Thomas Edward Patrick Brady II.
Acknowledge me.
Has officially declared himself an earned old man on the lawn status. Now, granted, we've seen it so much. NBA types who played back in the days when I watched most prolifically in the 90s. Our game is better and tougher and all. Well, okay, they're kind of right, but not when Thomas Patrick Edward Bieber Brady II. I threw the Bieber back in because I'm acknowledging you, Drew Willingham. That's he goes on saying that the NFL and its state of being is not as good as it was when he played because of the coaching and the player development and certain things. How you used to be able to do this and that. I used to be afraid to throw to the middle when somebody like Ray Lewis was playing, and all the stuff they would do and all the hits they would make are now considered illegal. And all the rules now make it so that offensive players don't have to protect themselves. I'm obviously paraphrasing, but how in the hell is a dude that literally inspired something called the Brady rule among all the other rules that are out there meant to protect quarterbacks talk that trash?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I'm standing on your lawn. I have always said that. I don't think you're the GOAT. You're a Hall of Famer and a first ballot one and a great player. And this take is far from being the GOAT, and it's not close.
Well played there, Kyle Nash. And again, honor, joy, and privilege, as you say. But for me, I feel the same way. As I again thank you for taking the time to be here this morning to help this show live on another week. As you know, I would have been able to do it, but it would have been tough to do 3 hours by yourself and to have a legend that I've worked with as many times as I have with you over the course of the past year or so. To have you here to fill in those shoes for one Cole Johnson, where I went to Cole's role and you went to mine, definitely has been a fun experience today. And I definitely appreciate you again for taking the time to be here. Look forward to doing this again with you again at some point.
Hey, I had fun sitting in your chair. I'm just trying to keep it right out here in these streets.
Oh, you did a great job. And I may even say you might have done a little bit better of the job that I do on an average basis, because Kyle Nash, you came in here with the fire. And with that, I have to give him
Acknowledge me.
I have to acknowledge Kyle Nash for coming in here and doing a great job. And, with that being said, people, for the last time in this episode,
Let me talk to you.
now we look at this over in this entire week as a whole, and we look at the preview for week 12. And I know that all of you out there are looking forward to Thanksgiving, not just because of football, but for the great eats. Okay. Thanksgiving, great time. Get to be with the family, get to eat some turkey, get to watch some football. Some of us may be a little bit depressed on Thanksgiving because some of our teams are playing and some of our teams may not play as well. It's going to be interesting to see if the Commanders can definitely rebuild from this past weekend and how they lost to the Giants, and see if they can definitely get this victory over the Cowboys. I'm picking them, maybe a little bit of a homer pick, like Kyle Nash admitted that he was making the homer pick for his 49ers. Okay. So when it comes to that, I know some of you are going to.
That's terrible.
I'm going to say.
What?
And why am I going to say?
What?
Because if you've looked at how the Commanders have played all season long, it's been up and it's been down. It's like a roller coaster. Sam Howell, in the games that they have lost, has basically thrown multiple interceptions. Okay. If they can come into this Cowboys game and play very similar to how they played against the Eagles during those two times, not how they played against the Giants, but how they played against the Eagles, a team that just went to the Super Bowl last year, a team that just won last night, and a team that's 9-1. If they play to that caliber against the Cowboys this Thursday, it's a wrap. The Cowboys are going to lose. It's just how it is. I feel that way. Even though the defense is much better than they've been of years past, even without Trayvon Diggs, I still feel like that the Commanders have a good chance. I could be completely wrong, and for that next week, I'll even do this.
Acknowledge me.
If we get to that point next week. But if we don't, then it is what it is, and I'll be up here saying.
Yeah.
So for that, I just don't think we're going to see this on Thursday night.
Hey, ain't nobody calling me, texting me, paging me.
Ain't nobody going to be calling you, texting you, or paging you on Thursday night anyway, because you're going to be getting that L, and they know your phone's going to be off. So when it comes to that, the Commanders are going to take this. But before we get on out of here, again, as always, you can find me here at these social media homes. If you want to throw a little donation to the Cash App, it is listed right there as well. We also have Cole's social media homes. You can find it all at flowcode.com/page/host Cole Johnson. And I've said it for now 12 consecutive episodes, but I'm going to get on that. I'm going to try to. I really need to get on that because it simplifies where all your links are at. Just need to make time to make it happen. And lastly, you again can find us here on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Central. You can watch on YouTube at Sertoba Media's YouTube channel, as well as at Comey Media Incorporated, which is Cole's brand as well. For those of you watching on PSF, the Pro Sports Fans app, you can also check us out there, as well as at other major platforms such as LinkedIn, Twitch, X, formerly known as Twitter, and sometimes on Facebook. I try to take and cut down shorter versions to put on Facebook without all the commercials and without stuff, because Facebook has been acting some type of way about some of the music that's in some of these commercials. So when it comes to that, I've been giving it a break from going live on Facebook, unless it's the Commander's Gridiron Report as the only show that I really go live with right now. But other than that, we have Mick in the house, and I want to acknowledge him too. Says hi, Drew and Kyle. Kyle acknowledged you. I'll acknowledge you too, Mick. Thank you for tuning in. You're 3 hours behind us, so it is just now 9:07 where you're at in California. So I understand why it's taking you a minute to get here. No big deals. But thank you for showing up and being here, as we appreciate all of our fans here for Total Football Talk, Comey Media, Sertoba Media, all of you that are tuning in on the PSF app. And as always, we've only got one more thing left to say to you.
Yeah.
And I'll bring Kyle up here for it. I'm not going to say what Cole says because I'm going to butcher it. Okay. Normally, he says this great inspirational message as we're on out of here. But all I'm going to say is what I say most notably on all of my shows. Thank you again, Kyle Nash, for being here. You lived up to the hype and look forward to doing it again. And as always, everyone, stay safe out there in these streets.